What's going on, everybody? Good to see everybody this morning. Welcome to all the viewers out there for here session 4 of the Model Geek 72. My AI device just decided it wanted to clunk on me. It's listening to me over there. How you guys? First of all, let's welcome a new face to the stream today. John from Mr. G's Workbench. John, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Darren. I appreciate it. Good morning to the rest of the geeks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's good to have you on board today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, we got the rest here, the rather cast of derelicts here. Whitey, Frill, Presidente, myself. So how are you guys doing, man? Last night was a somewhat of a late one, wasn't it? A long one. Session 3, what did we do? 5.5 hours?
Yeah, pretty much.
Late for me. And I didn't realize it was that late until I looked at my watch as I was shutting down. It's like, oh my goodness, no wonder I feel so tired.
Yeah, it was a late one. Yeah, it looks like we got some folks coming in there. Jake and Marco, Theron. Welcome, guys. Let's kind of go around the room. I know that y'all did a lot of work. I'm way behind the 8 ball on this one, but let me start here with Frildo. Frildo, you get any paint on yours yet?
I did. I got the radiator cover painted yellow. I got that going. I got the rudder done. I got the prop painted, the gear painted. I'm getting ready to paint the wheels. And I was kind of like Tamiya, they give mixing ratios for their paints, and I'm pretty sure it's a 74, 75, and 76 colors for this thing. I'm not very.
It could be, yeah, because it's a G6, right?
Yeah, and it's this one right here that I'm doing.
Yeah, unless it's some oddball. Unless it's some oddball scheme, it would generally be. What does it say when the time frame is? 44, 74, 75, 76.
Okay.
So the modeling on the side, you might be able to mix in some RLM2 or some 70, some of the other colors.
Yeah, I was trying to do some research online about it. And that's what they were saying. Like the modeling was like RLM02 and just different colors. So
right.
But yeah, I should be there at some point today.
Good. Yeah, you said that you were going to get some paint on it, and I know at 11 o'clock I looked last night, and I didn't see any paint yet. So,
yep.
Yeah.
See, that's you tell maintenance control, so they leave you alone.
Yeah. Yep. I know I've heard it quite a few times. So, well, Presidente, I know you got paint on your P47.
Yeah, I do. I shot some paint, and let's see. Here's where I am. I put the blue rudder, and I got the anti-glare panel started, but I don't like the lines, so I'm going to shoot some. I've masked it off. Going to reshoot the silver, clean that up, and then I've got some cleanup I need to do on this side. You can tell it's not quite symmetrical, so I got a little bit going on there, and I'm not mixing any colors. I'm just using straight Tamiya paints that are close enough. I think this is XF8 blue, and this is, I want to say, XF51 olive drab. It's a faded olive drab, so it's a browner color. But that's it. I mean, I'm slowly making some progress. I will definitely be finished painting shortly, and then I can start, once it has dried enough, I'll start considering stickers.
Good deal. All right, Whitey, your ancient kit, and I'm sure. So for everybody that's knows, we're gonna have Spencer Pollard on here in just a little bit, and he's got an article out right now on older kits, and that's going to kind of segue over to what Whitey's doing here with this ancient Airfix kit. But how's that thing coming?
Yeah, coming along. I'm getting ready to throw the dark sea gray on the top sides of it. And you can see there with that canopy, that masterful fit of these older kits. Again, in keeping with just trying to keeping things moving along. I wasn't going to spend a whole bunch of time trying to putty and smooth and get it all. I'm just rolling with what's in the kit, so to speak. And, build it, build what you got, sort of thing, So, yeah, the decals are shot on it, but I managed to go through my spares box and come up with some that I'll use. I have some generic Royal Navy numbering and
there you go.
Hold a sheet with some period roundels that I'll go ahead and get on here and
paint the stripes.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and paint the stripes. And the scheme that I'm going to do, luckily enough, the scheme out of the box has the stripes running over that outboard. I'm not familiar enough with Mark V Fireflies to tell you whether that's a radar or a fuel tank that's mounted out there.
Looks like I think that's a radar, if I'm not mistaken.
But it's on both wings, so that's why.
Yeah, I seem to remember it's a little of both. There's a radar. Yeah, they're both fuel tanks, but one is a smaller one with a radar in the nose.
Gotcha. So the scheme I found has the stripes inboard of that and then running over the cannon barrels. Well, that's what I'll roll with Vice, having to spend the time masking around this bulbous dealy-wop out there.
Okay. Copy that. All right. Good progress. So you're about ready to start painting too.
Yeah, sky underside is done, the lower fuselage. And then, like I say, I'm ready to get the dark sea gray on the top sides of it right about now.
Okay, cool. Good progress. So for myself, I'm kind of been doing the producing part of this, switching cameras and stuff, but you can see my Corsair is all in one piece now. I've got to get the canopy masked up, which I was fortunate when and for everybody that's watching out there, the kit that I'm doing is this Tamiya bird cage 72nd scale jobber. But when I opened it up, it's one of these ones I bought at a show. I was very happy to find that I had a set of masks in there. So I got very fortunate, and also a set of resin wheels. So score for me. Later on today, I plan on getting this mask up, and well, actually, I'm not even going to mask it. I'm going to go ahead and do it all freehand, but it's going to be the tricolor, antique white, navy blue, and medium sea blue colors from Pappy Bollington's aircraft. So hopefully get some color shot on that today. Remember, the goal's not to finish, but to have fun with the process. So that's what we're going to do. And on the decal side of it, I was a little disappointed when I put the instrument panel decals on it. I'm having to go back with my my liquid decal film. This stuff is worth its weight in gold, and coat each decal and get those things reset. But that's working like a champ. It held the seatbelt decals together with no problem. So I'll get the rest of them done and continue on with the kit stuff. So that's where I'm at. Let's see. Let's move over here to John. John, so I know that you haven't been building with the 72 scale side of things, but what you got going on your bench there? I know you're always working on something.
Dude, I'm chasing squirrels on a daily basis. I got, let's see. I'm currently doing this is the Minicraft P47, the new one.
Oh, yeah.
And spoiler alert, not a fan. It is what it is. So I'm knee deep in it. I'm almost done. You know what? The Tamiya one is a lot easier and looks just as good. So if I do another one, I would do that. I got, holy mackerel. I've got the Tamiya F4B, like half done.
Is that not a beautiful kit or what? I know you built a couple of the Phantoms. How do you like that F4B, man?
I was having a good time with it until I spilled glue all over one of the ejection seats.
Uh,
And then that thing just went right back in the box. I was like, let me just stop right here. It's one of those things where discretion's a better part of valor. I was better off putting it back in the box, set it aside, forget what happened. And I picked up some of those Edward seats. So I've got those. I'm going to use that. And I pulled the box back out about a week ago. I was like, this isn't bad. I can do this. So I picked back up on it. And as soon as I finish the P47, I want to finish that. I've got decals. You ever hear of impact decals?
yeah.
They had put out a set of bicentennial decals with all different Marine planes. So there was an F4B on there. So I'm going to do that.
There you go.
So
there you go.
And then that and probably 10 other planes half finished in the stash.
That sounds like my place.
I just, sometimes you just kind of hit a bump, and the best thing you can do is just box it back up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I know that feeling well. I've got a couple things. Well, like the Kitty Hawk 860 Romeo, you get to a point where you work so hard on it and you're trying to figure this out and figure that out. You start to get burnt out. I just got to put it on the shelf, let it sit, and then come back to it and then carry on so that, and that's what some of those builds take a long time, but it is what it is.
Exactly. I think I've had more success with stuff that I've done a step and set it aside, leave it alone for a while, come back and do another step. Because then it's like you said, I think what happens is you start to, I think what burns out a build is you just focus on it constantly. And then you start to see every little issue you have.
Yeah.
Where if you were just kind of working on something and you had like one little issue, you'd keep going. But when you're looking at the same subassembly for like a week or two, you're gonna find all your mistakes.
Oh man, it's just you just get tired of it. You get bored after a while. The rotor head was a perfect example. That res kit rotor head, which is beautiful and it builds into a great piece. It was just so tedious and took so long that you start to experience the burnout. You get bored. And you got to take that step back. Got to take it back. So let's see here. Let's go around here and see what these guys are up to. We had saw a while ago Martin Holst. Cheers from across the pond there, Martin. I see that you were finishing up your build this afternoon. Jake here is another one of our local club members in the paint booth. Good deal. And we saw Derek Post, another good friend of ours, out in the Las Vegas area. Good to see you, Derek. Good morning. So, well, as you guys know, here in just a little bit, we're going to have our special guest for today, aside for John here. Welcome, and again, thanks for joining us. But we'll be bringing Spencer Pollard on here from the UK here in just a little bit to talk about what he's got going on. And I think we're going to also be joined by Jeff Hearn, again, from Madison, IPMS Nationals Madison. So he's the chair and also a member of the Mad City Modelers up there in Madison, Wisconsin. So, yeah, there we are. So, John, what we're just trying to do this weekend is just promote building, right? And getting kind of out of that holiday slump. People to the desk, pick something easy, fun. There's that.
Everybody's going to have more kits incoming too, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not about museum quality builds here. It's just about melting plastic and having a good time and talking about models. So,
exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about that mini art. The P47. I don't know if you want to get too deep into it because I know you're doing a video on it, but anything that really glaring that turns you off on it, or
Well, you ever build a mini arc tank?
I have not. No.
Ah.
No.
I was attracted by their bright, shiny objects and I had picked up one of their tanks. And man, there had to be like 500 parts in there. And the P-47 kind of suffers from the same problem. There's a lot of little tiny parts, especially in the cockpit.
Yeah.
And some questionable planning in the way that the kit's designed. There's two gear door actuators for the main gear, and you have to put them in when you're putting the wings on the plane. So you've got these two little delicate, like sprigs of plastic sticking out of the gear bay with nothing to keep them from breaking off. And as sure as the grass is green, those things broke off in a heartbeat. And that was with me trying to be aware of them. So that was my biggest complaint with it, is like lots of little fiddly parts, and some of them, kind of for no good reason. And
so it's a tweezers. It's a tweezers kit. I know my fat fingers would not be able to handle that little stuff. So.
Exactly, my sausage fingers, and I constantly having a magnifier in front of me while I was building every subassembly. So
yeah. Oh well, see, now that piece I'm used to.
A little engineering then.
Well, I got for a magnifier, I have one of those desk lamps where it's like a ring, the light's like a ring, and the magnifier's in the middle. So there's only so long I can sit with this piece of glass and metal in front of me before I say like, oh.
Yeah, it's like the one Whitey's got there. I've got the same thing over my desk. And then not only do I have that, but I have my readers, which I've got on, and then my optivisor. So I find myself looking through all three of them at times.
Yeah, I've got my readers. I constantly have those on, and then I resort to the magnifier when I just can't see little tiny things anymore. So
I'm gonna shotgun El Presidente here. Tim has got an awesome set of readers that he uses, and there's like three different types in there. Tim, is it
3 different types?
Yeah, didn't you have 3 different magnifications of your readers? I believe it was.
Oh, are you thinking of these? Which are my what they are? They're the same as my reading glasses, except that they're 3 times the prescription. So you can see they're a little bit thicker. And I literally am holding things like right there, and I'm able to. They're prescription, and I don't need an optivisor. And I can see now. I can use an optivisor by just using my readers and throwing on an optivisor on top of that. If I tried to use an optivisor with these things, I'd literally be inside the diameter or the width of my optivisor.
You'd be burning stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it would. Besides it giving me a headache, I think it. I'd be creating holes in something.
Be one of the X-Men at that point.
Yeah. I could see it. Well, I guess.
Yeah. Well, from optivisors and reading glasses over to our guest for the night, we're very happy to introduce Spencer Pollard here from Spencer's Kit Box. Hey, Spence, it's great to see you, my friend. How are things across the pond?
Cold, windy, wet.
Sounds like here today.
Yeah, it's actually a lot like what we have here.
Yeah. It's not too bad actually. It's good. Yeah, it's all good. We're all running headlong to Christmas, aren't we? So everybody's sort of excited. I think it's going to be good. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Getting close. Well, I know you and I kind of went back and forth a little bit there through Messenger, but that's what the premise of this whole build is. It's just really a mojo builder, trying to get people out of the holiday slump and into building something fun. No competition builds, no BS zone. It's melt some plastic and have a good time. We're bringing some of the personalities on from social media. We have John here from Mr. G's Workbench on YouTube has joined us today. So John meets Spence, Spence meet John.
Good to meet you.
I think you met this motley crew up here, obviously a couple times.
I think I have. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, Spencer.
Yeah. Back.
Hi.
Back and forth.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of the holiday builds. John and I have been planning something along similar lines over the next sort of few months, really. And we decided when we did lockdown, we did all of those. We did some challenges in lockdown, and basically the idea was we'd go out and buy a very cheap kit, and we had 10 days to build it, and we weren't allowed to do certain things. So amongst the things that we weren't allowed to do, we weren't allowed to spend any more money on it. I think we had it at like £20. I think that's what it was the deal. Everybody would be able to buy the kit. It was readily available. You weren't allowed to use loads of aftermarket on it. You could scratch build stuff if you wanted to and do all of that sort of stuff. Anyway, he's sort of revitalized the idea of it over Christmas. And now he's thinking about, we're going to do one, if we can sort of find time between drinking large glasses of port, eating mince pies and watching crap TV. We're going to do a similar one, but we're going to use the Tamiya Walker Bulldog, the 35th scale one, which I think is still available for about 10, 12 quid or something like that. But part and parcel of that deal is that a load of other people have got hold of the kit as well, and they want to join along. They want to sort of build it, and we just thought it would be a nice break. It's a bit gloomy at this time of year, isn't it? It is. Absolutely. For a lot of people as well, it can be a time of year when they can feel a bit sort of dispossessed, really, and a bit out on the limb, not got big families, they're on their own, and all of that sort of thing. And I think that these kind of ideas bring together some really good sort of vibes for people. I think so. So to hear that you guys were doing it, I thought, yeah, that's brilliant. I like it. Yeah. I really like the idea of it. Yeah,
it's really good time, and for the folks obviously that aren't on camera, you mentioned that a lot of people were buying up the kits and wanted to follow along. What we've done is we've just put an album on the Facebook page and asked the listeners to dump their progress pictures in there and just kind of follow along. We've got a follow along in the chat. Our buddy Jake here from local letting us know that he's in the paint booth, so they're checking in with us as we're going through, and it's really a good time. Getting everybody involved.
What were the specifics to the kits? I'm not sure I caught up with this. Did you have a specific kit in mind?
We started it off with 70 seconds ago. Yeah, why did you go ahead? Fill them in.
I was just gonna say just whatever 70-second scale.
Okay.
And so I'm rolling with an old Airfix Firefly Mach 5.
Wow, that's sort of digging through the trenches of ancient kits.
There's it's definitely an old boxing too. If something from a stash that was going to be donated for the raffle that we had for our thing, and the decals were so far gone and a few parts were broken away from the sprues that we didn't feel comfortable putting in the raffle, so we pulled kits like that out and set them aside to just kind of, hey, you want a kit to mess with? Go ahead, here you go.
Yeah, and the thing about those kind of kits is they're old. That doesn't mean they're unworthy. It doesn't mean that it's not something that you should put your time into. And I do like the idea of sort of dealing with older kits as well, especially ones that you've got like that are lying around.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a case, I think, with those older products, as if you're not prepared to build them, you're not prepared to put some time in. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
See, he's put the reason people do this. They basically know now that I've got a serious monogram addiction, and it's starting to become not funny anymore. As is if I just move my sort of thing, you can kind of see that up there. That's pretty much my I guess my schedule for the next couple of years, on top of what I'll get for work. But as you can see, there's an awful lot of monogram kits.
Nice.
And that's it's kind of only part of the deal. And I have to say that I thank Mike Reeves, and I put thank in inverted commas because I'm not sure that thank you is perhaps the best sort of description to give somebody that seems to be feeding this addiction as much as he is. But it's yeah, I mean, really enjoying those monogram kits. And Corsair is one that I've never done.
I've got pretty much all of them in this series, and I like the box art because growing up as a kid, these were like my favorite box arts. Like when I go to we had a store called TG&Y in Florida, and they would have a bunch of these, and my grandmother would always buy me one or whatever. And so I've taken up and gone to shows and on eBay and stuff, and I found decent boxings that the box top was in good shape.
Yeah,
and I took it and I got them. I took 9 of them and I cut the boxes off into monogram colors. I've got a picture frame, and I had the matting. I have a red mat, a white mat, and a blue mat, and I have them set in that as like in my basement in my man cave.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Because it's like classic box art, you know, that I remember. And these kids were so much fun to build.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's a really important part of this process, isn't it? I've seemed to have created this sort of reputation around myself that I only build older kits now, which isn't true because I'm currently building a Tamiya F35B, and you know, and I've just sort of, you know, and I've done a few newer kits this year, quite a few newer kits this year. But if I'm choosing to do older kits, it is, if I'm choosing to build a kit for myself, it tends to be an older boxing, an older product. And I think that box art thing is a really important part and parcel of that. I've got a big project coming up next year, which will be an Airfix 24 scale Messerschmitt 109E. That
I was just looking at that.
Yeah, and I've sort of had it on the back burner for a while. I had a conversation with Pete Castle at the National Championships. He's the guy from Aeroscale who's just worked a bunch of updates for that kit, cockpit updates, seat, propeller, and all sorts of other bits and pieces, and also inserts for the wheelbase. And the reason that came up was because of a conversation I had with him at Nationals, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, I think they're doing this, but the reason why I've sort of stalled on this is because of those wheel wells. And he said, well, I don't have a kit. If I had a kit, I'd have it. So I posted my kit to him and said, here you go, Pete, use the kit. So, and within seemingly 40 minutes, he came up with a whole bunch of updates on this kit and then sort of dropped them into his range. Now, part of the reason why I'm so excited about doing that is that original box art that kit was sold in. I think there were 2 actually that were both as beautiful as each other. One was like a sort of slightly under 3/4 view of it, and it was in like a mottled camouflage. It's the one that's on the front cover of the Airfix book. And then the other one was of it taking off, and it's got that light blue color scheme with the 2 grays on the sort of upper spine and then the wings, which is like a classic 109 color scheme. But it is that box art, it captures your imagination. And I think because those were the kits I saw when I was younger, I was, 56 in 2 weeks time. When I was younger, those things stuck in my brain, and now that I've got the chance, I'm still sort of subconsciously leading on to consciously as excited about those kits today as I was when I first saw them, as a child. I don't think you ever lose that, and so it doesn't surprise me that you've collected the box art. It doesn't surprise me that that you wanted to mount that box art on in a frame. I think
there's certainly something nostalgic about it. I mean, I found this. This is the first kit I remember building as a kid. Yeah. It's just the one that sticks out in my mind. And what was that, Whitey?
Oh no, that was me. I went and took a picture. I was going to try and post it, but I don't know if I can.
Yeah. And then this, $8 US dollars at a show, and just to have a piece of what I call my youth. Will I ever build this? Probably not, just because it's just so cool for me. It's a memory of my childhood, so.
One of those, part of the attraction for me of Monograms kits, apart from, their reputation for detail and that kind of thing. And to you guys, these would have been, these would have been $2 kits. A lot of these things when you were growing up, you'd have gone out and bought them like we bought Matchbox kits, or we bought little Airfix kits. You'd have bought Monogram kits. To us, though, Monogram was much like Tamiya was at the time. It was kind of exotic, but it does have an interesting part of my development. The very first 48 scale kit I ever built was a Monogram Zero. That was the first. That was not only the first Monogram kit I had. That was the first time I'd ever built anything in 48, and so that sort of stuck with me. But I never built those Monogram kits. When I was a child, I dabbled in a couple of them. The F106 is one that I talked about quite a bit, and how at 15 I thought it was a clever idea to go out and buy that kit and see whether I could build it, and it was a complete disaster because it is notoriously unpleasant to put together. But I never really bought them, so I'm actually looking at these Monogram kits really from fresh. They're coming to me and crossing my bench, and I'm looking at them and going, oh yeah, that's quite nice, I like that. So I go back to Mike Reeves. He sent me a B25 J. Would it be that? Is that the one with the, or the H or the J, the one with the gun, the big gun on the front? I can never remember. And he sent me one of that. I'd never had that. Yeah, I'd never had that kit before. A friend of mine gave me a Marauder, and I'd never, again, not a kit that I'd ever done. So it was something that I liked the idea of doing, and when I got them, I wasn't disappointed. And I am cognizant of all of the issues that a lot of these kits throw up in terms of fit and some of the accuracy issues with them, but I'm not that bothered about that. I'm more concerned about the idea of using my skill set in 2023 to build kits that were manufactured 50 years ago and see whether or not I can get them to a stage where when I put them on a table or I photograph them, people are slightly knocked off balance by how they look and sort of second guess themselves. Oh, is that a new kit? No, it's not a new kit. It's an older kit. That's sort of where the challenge is, really. But also it comes down to sort of favorites. My two favorite bombers of the Second World War, no, three favorite bombers of the Second World War. My favorite is the B-24 Liberator, head and shoulders above everything else. But then I like the Marauder and the Mitchell as well. I still think the Marauder is probably the best looking twin of the Second World War if I'm pushed into a corner. And I include the Mosquito in that as well. I think the Marauder there's just something about that airplane, the way it looks, its stance on the ground. It's just beautiful to look at. I can't get past it. So I'm sort of seeing these fresh, and that's where the excitement is. It's having models of these things. I don't know why I've waited so long, really. Maybe I should have, built them a lot, ages ago, rather than sort of building them now. I really don't know, but I'm getting the chance to do it now. The only slight downside is they're also bloody big. That's the problem.
They are big. My
studio's not that big, so I'm rapidly running out of space to put these things. The Century series takes up an awful lot of real estate inside my display case. So don't know. I'll kind of carry on with it. Really,
we have a very warm spot in our heart with Monogram, to the point where we like to have a little bit of fun with the logo as well. So it's kind of. Well,
I think somewhere up here I've got. Do you remember in the monogram kits they had some of the embroidered logos, didn't they? The embroidered badges that they gave away with kits. I have two of those, which I'm actually thinking of putting on a polo shirt. I'm thinking of putting them onto a white polo shirt.
Give me a moment. I think I have
two of those.
What you're looking for. Look at this. I've got right here, stuck in my little stash.
Yeah, that's it. Those are them.
Yep,
yeah,
I've got several of them. Let's see here. Yeah, so I've got the Sky Raider, the Typhoon, the Kingfisher.
Ah, nice.
The TBD, the F1, the Focke-Wulf 190, and the T28. So, and I forget where I found. I think I found these on eBay or something. Actually, a couple of years back. Yeah,
so I'm assuming
those are really nostalgic.
These monogram kits. I'm assuming that they were, they were widely and readily available everywhere when you were growing up. It wasn't like they were it wasn't just a model shop thing. I always got the sense that they, like ours, Matchbox kits, not so much Airfix, they tended to go to the bigger sort of retailers like Woolworths and that kind of thing, WH Smiths and everything, as well as the model shops. Whereas Matchbox, obviously because they were a smaller company, you would find those in village post offices. You would find old Revell kits in village post offices as well, which is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming
that's where we would get them, just at what we called the little 5 and dime stores.
That's it, yeah. Whereas kids then would just sort of see them. You'd see them on the shelves and go, oh yeah, I really like the idea of that. And in fact, I bought one of the worst kits I think I ever bought. Although I didn't buy it, I think my nan bought it. Was Revell did an F100? Was it the A? It was like a box scale kit. It was sort of like sub 48 scale, maybe like 67th or some ridiculous scale like that. But it had all of the markings all engraved onto the sort of the airframe, so that you would put the decal inside the engraved markings. And everything. And I think it's the only way that you can get that aircraft still, even in 2023. I think it's the only plastic kit that's ever been made of that particular subtype of F100. I think it's the A. I can't quite remember. But I think that Detail and Scale in their F100 book, they review it and they got some bits and pieces in there about it and sort of say, although this is the only way of building this aeroplane, please avoid, because it's just awful. And I seem to remember being like that even back then.
You speak of Detail and Scale. Bert and Brock are very good friends and one of our sponsors with the podcast. Very good friends of the show. And you had mentioned back talking about the Marauders. They just came out with their new book on was it the B-25? Right, I'm going to get my numbers wrong because I'm just that dyslexic. But what was it? You got a copy of the new book there, Phil?
Yeah, they got their P-47 book they just released.
Yeah, the P-47.
And then before that was the B-24.
B-24. There you go.
Both of them are very nice too.
Yeah, I might have to have a look at that B-24, but because they did an earlier one, didn't they? They did is that the second book that they've done? So it's sort of like a reworking of the book. Yeah, so I might have to have a look at that. I think I met Bert in almost kind of in passing at the US Nationals in Atlanta in
more than likely
2004, 2005 maybe, I guess, back then. And I think it was about the time that Revell had released their Super Hornet kit. You remember their 48 scale Super Hornet that came out?
Yeah, we sure did.
I think it was one of the first. I think I got into a conversation with him about that kit. He absolutely will not remember me. I was just some random guy chatting away to him. But I'm pretty sure that I did. I'm sure they had a stand there was like, or he was on somebody's stand and they said, this is Bert Kinsey, and I was like, oh, okay, brilliant.
Bert and Rock are both just great human beings and such an asset to the hobby. They really, really are, and their publications are just they're just awesome. And the talk with about Detail and Scale and Nationals, etc., is a great segue into me introducing you to Jeff Hearn here. Jeff is the chairman of the Madison, Wisconsin IPMS Nationals this year.
So
he's running. So Jeff, meet Spencer. And I was going to ask you this question a little bit later on if you had any plans on making it over here for Madison this year. So
I think
COVID kind of kept you down there for a few
years.
It
did. It's really all about finances and time away from work. That's really I say that a lot. I get invited around a lot, but I would love to at some point. I would love to do another US Nationals because I had such a good time the last time I was there, and for me there's a lot of people that follow me from your part of the world who
are a lot.
And have always been so lovely to me as well, and very supportive. And so whenever I've been over there, it's always been something that I've kind of treasured. And I have been over quite a few times. Last time I was over there was I was invited over by Lee Codden to do a show in New Orleans. They had their sort of to show in New Orleans, and that's when I got a chance to. I actually went to Pensacola as part of that trip. I think I was only over for about 4 days. I don't think I've ever been more tired in my entire life. I flew in. It got to a point where we sort of. I flew in and we did some bits and pieces. I think on the Friday, the show. I have a feeling the show was either Friday and Saturday, or just Saturday. I can't quite remember now. But they arranged to go out into New Orleans to have a meal on the first night I was there, and I was so exhausted I fell asleep in the bar of the hotel. Roy Sutherland came up to me in the bar and said, "Spencer, we're all going out to eat." And I said, "Roy, I can't keep my eyes open. I genuinely can't keep my eyes open." I said, "I'm just going to ruin your evening," kind of thing, if I do that. And so I ended up going up to hotel and having I think I had room service, and I had a fantastic burger or something like that, and I had room service. But the show itself was fantastic. I got to do some demonstrations and all of that sort of stuff.
Well, I'll throw this out there, and you're gonna have to plot the second and third week of July off as holiday, because we have the Nationals, which start on Wednesday, the 14th, and goes through Saturday, the 17th. You have Sunday as a down day, and then on Monday, the 18th, Oshkosh starts, the EAA convention.
There you go.
So you are within 60 minutes driving time of the greatest model show in the hemisphere. Notice I said the hemisphere, and the greatest air show. One of the greatest air shows in the hemisphere. So
I have a sneaking suspicion that if you were to say anything like that and be serious about it, it'd be like pitchforks at dawn, wouldn't it?
They'd be storming my house.
They absolutely would. I mean, like I say, I would love to do that, because and also one of the other things I really would like to do, if I was ever make it over and have some sort of time and be able to do this, is I really want to do the US Air Force Museum as well. And
actually very close.
Yeah, and because I went to the Uzvar Hazy Museum on a layover, actually. When I went to New Orleans, I had 3 hours layover coming into the States, and rather than sit in the airport, I left the airport, got a taxi to the museum, which is just around the corner from the airport. And I had all of 2 hours can you imagine going to a museum like that and only having 2 hours? So I sort of blitzed around it and took some photographs. But the US Air Force Museum, I mean, there's so many things that are wonderful in there. They've just obviously we've sort of been keeping up to date with this, and I posted something on my page actually about the X-32 and how much I like it as a subject, and I like it as a machine. And they just finished their restoration, haven't they? So, and it's gone on display there. And aren't they? Is that where Streak Eagle is going to be as well? Yeah. So the idea of sort of seeing Streak Eagle and the X-32 prototype sort of side by side is mind blowing.
We actually have correct me if I'm wrong, Whitey and Phil, but Tim, I think it's the X-32 we have right here at the Pax River Air Museum.
It is. The X-32.
Right here at the main gate. Yeah.
Oh, really? So you've got the other one, have you?
Yeah, we got sitting just 8 miles up the road here.
Yeah, they did a flight test for it when they were going off for the F-35. They were doing the
flight test here.
The flight test right out here.
At Pax River, is that where they were doing it? Was it? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
I caught up with a video last couple of days, the chief test pilot was talking about it, but I didn't get time to watch it all. I need to sort of watch all of that. I'm fascinated by the idea of it, and I'm kind of fascinated with the idea of building one, but maybe building it in 30-second rather than building it sort of from the 70-second scale kit. And it's a lot of wiggly shapes, though, isn't it? It's a kind of it's a very odd set of profiles on that aeroplane, but I think it would look really interesting like that. And it's another one of those interesting stories of procurement as well, because obviously Boeing's design that went in the fly-off against the X-35 wasn't their intended design. That was just like an interim. They got a much more advanced and much more defined design that would have flown that didn't have the kind of the slightly goofy look that the prototype had got. And I think it would have been really cool with it, because the sort of the actual design had tailplanes. It had twin fins, tailplanes, an extended fuselage. The fuselage itself, I think, was slightly shallower. The mouth at the front was a different profile. Underwing hard points. It would have looked like a crazy Corsair development. It would have looked really smart. So it's fascinating, really, and so that's what I'd like to do. But going to Boothvar-Hazy and seeing all those airplanes for like 30 seconds was just like, God.
Yeah, let me touch on the museums just a little bit, because I've hit them all. I'm a kind of a aviation museum aficionado here in the States, and I love going to them. Boothvar-Hazy is a good one. I have been to the Air Force Museum as well. A little bit dark in the place. Kind of hard to see some things, but to touch on Pensacola, you said you had been to Pensacola. Did you have a chance to go to the Naval Aviation Museum at Pensacola while you were there?
Yeah, that was where I went. Yeah, and we travelled over there, and actually we did we did a stopover as well, because we stopped at Battleship Park, Memorial Park in is it Mobile? Yeah. And we stopped there and had a sort of wander around. Didn't go inside though, because it was a flying visit through, and Lee just said, "Oh, we'll stop here and you can go and have a look at Alabama, USS Alabama, isn't it? That's there. Go and have a look at that. And there's some things outside." What I didn't appreciate, and I only found out this about 2 months ago, is that the YF-17 is in that museum, is inside.
It's in Pensacola,
and I was just like, oh, I missed it. And I just didn't see it. And I would have loved to have seen that as well. There are certain airplanes, aren't there, that you sort of want to see, I think, as a fan of military aviation. That was one that I would have loved to have seen.
Being a career F-18 guy, the YF-17 was actually my favorite display there. Maybe I'm a little biased. When I'm looking at aircraft in general, I tend not to be. But that museum, the Pensacola Naval Aviation Museum, by far is probably the best museum I've ever walked through. It is just unbelievable, and just Naval Marine Corps aviation, period. It's amazing.
I sort of feel, kind of, that. We're fortunate because we have Duxford here, and Duxford is an astonishing collection of types, especially at the start of the season. Because if you go there at the start of the airshow season, before the flying starts, you go into the hangars. All of the Spitfire, the UK Spitfires and Hurricanes and P-51s are all in the hangars, and they also keep the B-17 in the hangar and everything. So you can go to it. So when a friend of mine and I went earlier on this year, the B-17, Memphis Belle, I suppose, is what we call it.
That's it. Right, Patterson now.
Yeah, and it got all of its engines exposed, and they were doing all of the final sort of servicing on it, and you can see all of this kind of thing. So obviously that's a spectacular thing to be able to see. But in terms of presentation of airplanes and as an actual museum, I think that Pensacola collection is very difficult to beat, because you could eat apart from anything else, you could eat your food off the floor. It is so clean and tidy in there.
And 95% of everything in there you can fly right out of the museum, and they're still keeping it as clean as they do.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And they've recently moved the Officers Club from QB Point in the Philippines when they shut down. They took all of that, and bar and restaurant at the museum now is been redone from Dewey Point. They moved it to Pensacola. So
oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think you'll find the same thing at the Air Force Museum. It's as Darren alluded, the lighting is not. The lighting is a little more theatrical. There are some aircraft that are kind of tucked away in the shadows, and then there's other aircraft, Memphis Belle, for example, that has suspended lighting and studio lighting, making it the centerpiece. But the beauty of the Air Force Museum, unlike a lot of the other facilities that I've ever gone to, and I was an Air Museum director for a dozen years, you can literally walk right up and put your hand on the side of Memphis, or not Memphis Belle now, she's up in the air.
But a Valkyrie you can.
You can walk around these aircraft, and the best part of it is it's the Air Force Museum. You need as an aircraft enthusiast, you literally need 2 days to go through the facility. You can do it in a day, but you're rushing. They have 5 hangars now that are, and if you spot something that you have an interest in, the next thing you know, it's an hour later, and you're still, behind the curve. But the beauty of the Air Force Museum is that as you walk around, you find all of these little hidden gems just tucked away, and everywhere you look, there's something historically significant. That's something that has provenance. It's not just an airframe; it's a specific airframe. That's and that's the the one and only. That's kind of, it's like when you go to the Air and Space Museum of the Smithsonian on the mall. There is the original Wright Flyer. There is the original Spirit of St. Louis. It's not a replica. It's not, and it's got provenance. And I think a lot of times, guys, it's not lost on guys like us, but a lot of time, I don't believe that the general tourist can grasp the scope, and the history behind that one particular artifact.
That was the reason. That was the reason I went to Uswa Hazy. It wasn't to see the collection; it was to see Enola Gay.
Yeah,
it was to be close to Enola Gay, and the hairs. Every time I mention it to somebody, the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. I don't think I've ever felt more emotional being next to an aircraft as I was to that. It was a mixture of excitement and sort of like a strange darkness about what I was looking at.
It's surreal.
Yeah,
it's a real feeling.
And I couldn't help but when I was sort of stood and I was sort of walking around it and I was having a look at it, and then I got to that point where I could see the Enola Gay logo on the nose, and I sort of just stopped there. It took my breath away a little bit, and I couldn't help but think about that day, that crew, what it was carrying, the people on the other end of it, and your feelings on all of that are sort of almost, they're not part of this discussion because it is what it is. And I just couldn't take my eyes off it. I was like, God, that's Enola Gay. That's the aircraft. That's arguably the most famous aircraft on Earth. Can you? We're all aviation enthusiasts, but can you name me another aircraft that's more well known than that one? And the fact that it's still there and it's being preserved, and I know from people who said, I told people that I'd gone there, and they said, were there all the demonstrations outside? And there weren't. There was nobody else there. It was very quiet, peaceful day. It's what it sort of stands for, the whole kind of thing. But I would imagine you would feel the same way for completely different reasons if you were to see the Wright Flyer, just to sort of see it, see what it means, Spirit of St. Louis, see what it means, and And we got a chance at Cosford. I live only about 10 miles from Cosford, so that gives you an idea of sort of where we've been. And if you've been out to the UK and you've been to the museum, you'll have sort of seen. They've got
that's El Presidente down here. He's the
yeah
UK museum aficionado down there.
Yeah, so they've got a cherry bomb in there. They've got an ochre, and you could and they have open cockpit nights, and you can actually sit in that little flying bomb, kamikaze aircraft. And my good friend Harris Ali and we went and did one of these open cockpit nights, and I got to sit in it. And despite the fact that I'm 6'2", I actually kind of fit in this thing, which I didn't with the Messerschmitt 163. I couldn't get anywhere near the inside of the cockpit of that thing at all. I think you probably needed to be about 5'2" and weigh about 8 stone to get anywhere near the cockpit. It's so tiny. But I remember sitting in that thing and thinking, there are guys who flew these things, and this was the last thing they ever saw.
Yeah.
That glazing, that control column, that's the last thing that those guys ever saw. And it's sort of it's those exhibits, isn't it? When you see them and you're put in their presence, that you suddenly start to think, yeah, they mean more than just those little miniatures that we put together. They're about people. They're about sort of the story that goes around those things. And that's why these museums are so important, and that's why I love kind of going to them. I was up at Cosford a couple of days ago taking photographs of the Messerschmitt 410 that we have in the UK, and also they've got a V1. There's a few V1s in the UK. There's one at Duxford. There's one at Cosford.
I think there's a V1 at Wright-Patterson too, isn't there? Isn't there
I believe
V1?
so. Yeah, it was originally I think. And I'll probably be corrected, but I think it was a Navy Loon.
Yeah, JB1 probably.
Yeah, and then they repainted it into German colors too.
Okay.
So what's the difference between a Loon and a V1? Were they essentially just the same?
Who built them?
Is that it? Is that the difference? Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, most of them were made from spares that they found in Germany and France and the Netherlands.
Okay.
And then I think, whatever repairs they had to make to them in order to, if they were missing parts, they would put them together. But that was, I guess technically that was our first cruise missile, sea-launched cruise missile.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's sort of, having just built a couple of these things for my latest diorama, I've got one spare. I actually, I bought 3 Tamiya V1s to put as part of the diorama, but I only used 2, so I've still got one. So I'm not sure what to do with this. I might do a Loon actually out of this.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, you really want to go to town, do a Loon on a ship's deck, a U.S. Navy ship deck.
Ooh.
Yeah, the launcher.
Yeah, the late 40s.
Oh, that sounds
about
good.
46 to 49.
Where would I find photographs of that?
Oh, I'm sure you can find them online somewhere.
Okay, because they were painted in quite bright colours as well, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they were mostly silver and orange.
Yeah, that might be interesting actually, because I don't really. There we go.
That's the Bronco. I believe it was the Bronco kit.
So is that 48th?
35th.
35th. That's 35th, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I couldn't bring myself to do it in German markings, and I saw this, and it was a little more colorful and of literally an evening's build.
Yeah.
And a grand total, I think there's about 12 parts.
Yes, that's pretty much the same as the Tamiya kit. It's got 2 fuselage halves, 2
upper lower
wings that are one piece on each side, and then an opening for the pulse jet, and then the face of the jet, and that's it. That's pretty much it. And there's like a little trolley that goes with it. But I don't really want to throw. Now that I've built this, I don't really want to throw it out. I'll sort of keep it as it is. But like I say, I bought 3 because I thought 3 would go well together on the diorama, but it completely overcrowded everything and didn't look right. So I only used 2 of those.
Quite common to see them in bright yellow.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. That's sort of where my head was really with that, and do it in bright yellow. Seems a shame to waste it. So I might do that and do something do something with it, do a little vignette or something like that. But
yeah, if you do a search your Google foo for there's an interesting one. Do a search Google foo with and look at images. There's yellow, there's orange, there's a mix of yellow and red. There's silver, white and red, silver and what appears to be olive drab. Let's see.
That's like what Jeff just did. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's actually one photograph of a submarine launching one. So but it's a JB2, which was built. They're actually U.S. built by Republic Ford, as opposed to the JB1, which I believe was repurposed and repaired from scraps. But yeah, there's a lot there, and the JB2 looks identical to a V1, is that what it was? V2?
Yeah, V1.
V1, yeah. But yeah, pretty much every color you can think of. There's a whole lot of different colors out there.
See, that would be an interesting. So there's a picture there of a B-17 that Scott Van Acken's done with loons under the wings. That'd be quite something to do. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if you get a couple of them in 48 scale, then you can fall back on your monogram B-17.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's sort of trying to plan what I'm going to do with these models. When it comes to things like the B-17, Darren sort of got in touch with me when we were talking earlier on about sort of talking about future projects and everything, and a couple of those future projects are sort of monogram bombers, but I'm being quite specific about my ideas towards them, and going back to the comment I made earlier about people and sort of and the history and the stories. B-17 is I've started to sort of do some reading up on the Schweinfurt raids. And also the Ploesti raid. So one on the oil refineries in the Ploesti oil refineries, and also the ball bearing factories, and the sort of the absolute car crash that those kind of raids were for the crews. I think the first of the Schweinfurt raids, I think only 3 aircraft came back from the entire raid. So I'm slightly determined at the moment to maybe create a model from a B-24 that flew as part of the Ploesti raids, and a B-17 that flew as part of the Schweinfurt raids, and to sort of honour the crews really that had to endure those 2 missions. Although the Schweinfurt raids, I think there was a bunch of them, there wasn't just one raid. They went after that.
The 100th. The bloody 100th got really beaten up at Schweinfurt.
Yeah, it was really awful, and you hear the sort of the stories of it and everything. So I'm sort of like that really. I'm sort of thinking about doing that, but and I don't know. I sort of feel that the monogram kit should maybe do that. But I've also got one of the Great Wall, not the Great Wall Hobby, the Hong Kong models B-17, and that might work with a couple of Tamiya V1s under the wings. That may be something that I could do.
Probably be a little more pleasant build.
Yes, maybe it will. Yes, there kind of is that really, but yeah, I can't seem to shift this the sort of the feeling that I need to do something for those raids really. I'm obviously a Brit. It's not something that's part and parcel of our psyche, but I think it must be something that would be part and parcel of the psyche of an American. When it comes down to sort of action during the Second World War and bombing raids during the Second World War, those two must loom large in the sort of the collective psyche of Americans looking into those, especially when you realize just how young those kids were that were flying in those machines. I mean, God.
Yeah. I don't know that it I mean, for example, I think all of us, I finished a book for Crowwood Press during COVID modeling British aircraft, and they wanted me to do a Lancaster project, and so I, not really knowing much about Lancaster operations, I started looking around and reached out to a few people, and I said, well, you have to tell me, what are the most memorable, what were the Memphis Belles and the Lady Be Goods of the Lancaster force, and had 3 or 4 different examples, and I finally settled on a I can't even remember the squadron now, but I settled on this one particular aircraft because they flew the entire war, and on their last mission, they went missing, and they've never been found. So I chose to build that aircraft. I believe there's only 1 or 2 photos of the aircraft that exist, at least what I was able to find, and that kind of became the subject of my Lancaster build for the book. I don't know. I think it kind of just transcends. I think it transcends nationalities and borders when you think about a lot of those missions, and the human loss and the human element that's involved.
I don't think. 100%. I mean, I think part of it is that that when it comes to memorable aircraft from the Second World War, maybe it was just down to almost this sort of, I don't know, that I hasten to use the phrase, but showboating that you got from American crews as opposed to the British crews, whether that was that was simply down to the command structure. We had a similar thing at the end of the Gulf War, when the Tornadoes and the Buccaneers and the Jags came back and they got nose art on them, and as soon as they got back, they were saying, no, you got to take that nose art off, and very few of those aircraft survived with the nose art in place. It was sort of allowed while it was out there, but once it got back, it got sort of taken off, so that those aircraft didn't really get into the sort of the psyche of the public. The aircraft, most machines that flew for the RAF all were in exactly the same camouflage. They didn't really have bright markings on them. They had everything was kind of standardized on them. And whether that standardization was across early war years where you had green and brown camouflage, and then it went on to green and gray camouflage and that kind of thing, same with the bombers, all of those. So they didn't have that sort of, there was nothing that really kind of stood out. It was almost like that there was a reticence back there for any particular crew to be seen above and beyond another crew or a particular pilot. There were obviously exceptions to that, there were plenty of the pilots who became famous through the years and through the war years, and Johnson and all of those guys, and they became sort of famous. Douglas Bader was famous mainly for being a prat to everybody that ever came in contact with him, and just was from what I can see, was just a vile human being. But that's kind of, they just became sort of famous, whereas the American crews had, there was sort of they were a little bit more grandiose in their sort of approach. Aircraft were almost always named. Squadron colors were almost always brighter. You compare a Mustang squadron, for instance, with a Spitfire squadron flying side by side, and the Spitfire squadron looks really kind of bland in comparison. And I wonder whether it's down to that. It's down to presentation of image that has kind of allowed those kind of things. And also with, I guess, I don't know this for sure, but with Memphis Belle after the war, they flew back and they did like tours, didn't they? They kind of went around the state.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the overriding factor there is probably the newspapers and the media of the time. Whereas Great Britain, you're dealing with the war literally in your backyard. We're over here, we're trying to sell the war to the public. Like that's almost age old. So because, I'm sure even though it was World War II, a good war and all that kind of stuff, you still, hey, why is my boy going over there to fight again? And, and so there was certainly that hey, look at what these guys are doing, dropping bombs on the Nazis, and Memphis Belle being the perfect example. Let's bring them on home, have them do a war bond tour, make them famous.
Whitey, when you consider how many Americans, boys were dying every single day, whether it was of course, up until 1944 in the Eastern, in the European theater, it was primarily in the air that men were dying, whereas in the Pacific, it was everything, and it was, there were a lot of Americans dying, and unfortunately, the government, through the War Department, Army, Navy, etc., had to sell it to the American people on a regular basis because they were. You can look at some of the newspapers of the time, and people were asking the question, why are we fighting over there? We're not threatened. Other than 1942 when the U-boat war got close, there really was no danger in America. Americans were going to work. They were building aircraft for other people. And there were a lot of folks that felt that was good enough. We didn't need to send our people over. And if we did, it was in Japan where we needed to get revenge for Pearl Harbor, not in Europe. So it had to be sold. And the way to sell it was to play up, it was dangerous. But when aircraft and crews completed their tour and came home, you made a big deal about it. Because American aircraft or Navy aircraft did not have a whole lot of nose art. That was actually an exception, not the rule. Whereas with the Air Force, Army Air Forces, they absolutely had nose art everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's. I don't know. Maybe it was. I hadn't really thought about it like that, but maybe it was down to that the sort of that Britain were more like, well, we're just doing this because if we don't, we're going to get overrun, and that's going to be it. And
Britain didn't have a choice.
It literally didn't have a choice, because we'd seen what had happened 23 miles over the channel, and they thought, well, this is going to be us one day, and that's that. So there wasn't any appetite for flamboyance at the time, although, like I say, I'm sure there were elements of that kind of thing, and it didn't sort of feel as like an adventure. It was just something that was done. But I go back to the point I made earlier that I think that there were such strict controls on the way that these machines looked and what they were able to do with them, that there wasn't that kind of flexibility to. I'm sure that if there had been, there were RAF aces, and if there had been RAF aces that had aircraft that were painted up to reflect that status and have their own names and colours emblazoned on them, they would have stuck a little bit more than just AN other Spitfire from AN other squadron in just the same camouflage as kind of everything else, and I think that's sort of maybe what it was. But and it's only sort of in recent times over the decades that people that did very heroic things back then and who were aces, and their names have started to become known a little bit more through television and the internet and that kind of thing. But asking the question, can you give me your, from a Lancaster squadron, can you give me your, Memphis Belle, or can you give me Lady Be Good, or whatever, Dragon and
George?
The answer, I couldn't give you that answer.
The damn 617 squadron would probably be the closest.
That's what I'm saying. G for George. Which was that wasn't that the 617 squadron, the squadron leaders aircraft. So that, to me, that's the first Lancaster, I think, wartime Lancaster.
Yeah. Mine was 57 squadron, and it was A for Apple, LM 624 from 57 squadron.
And it did the whole war and then disappeared.
Yeah.
Wow.
See if I can. I can't even remember if I wrote about the little sidebar in the book or not.
And any crew that their aircraft they received the Victoria Cross. That to me stands out. I try to read any of those stories because I know there's not many of them. I was at a Telford back in it was either 2013 or 2014. I don't remember now. One, I think it was the Bomber Command SIG. Their table had nothing but Victoria Cross bombers on it, and I want to say they were. I don't think they were in 48 scale because that would have been too big, but it was a huge display, because they had laid out I think 4 tables that were 2 by 8, roughly 2 by 8 feet, 2.5 by 8 feet, and they laid out it was probably from like a model railroading, but it was a sheet that had texture to it and appeared to be grass. And they had each of the aircraft. I mean, they had Wellingtons, they had a Manchester, they had I think they had a Sterling. They certainly had a Lancaster or 2. But they had Hamptons. I mean, every single bomber aircraft. And I probably spent an hour just studying those different ones. And I mean, it chokes me up now just thinking about it. Because each one of those, the vast majority of them never came home. And to think that something like that is not celebrated is not the correct word, but acknowledged in the greater population, it should be at the end of the day.
How much of it though, and Spencer, you can obviously speak to this, but how much of it is what we would consider to be cultural stoicism? There's always been that preconceived notion that Americans are cowboys and wild men, and does that play into it?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. The UK historically has been a place, and I'll sort of speak firstly to say that that in my experience, the vast majority of Americans that I've sort of ever met have been anything but cowboys, and have been as self-effacing as we are. But I think in the UK, there's very much that you're basically going to you're going to just be torn to pieces if you start showboating in front of anyone. People don't like it's sort of part of our thing. If somebody comes in and they're sort of showing off and, look at me, aren't I great? You're just going to get the mickey taken out of you forever. There's that sort of tacit kind of realization when you do that you've kind of given everybody ammunition that they need to make your life as miserable as possible, because we just don't like it. We don't like that, aren't I great? Look at me thing. And I wonder whether or not that was certainly something that came through the war years. And don't forget as well that we'd come through World War One as well, and we'd had all of that had come out of the First World War, and we'd had all the rationing, we'd had all of these young men coming back, and they had horrific injuries. Tens of thousands of young men had been killed during the First World War, and it was only a couple of decades till the Second World War happened. It was like, oh, here we go again. Have we got to go through this all again? And I think by the end of the Second World War, nobody really wanted to talk about it. It was like, we're sick and tired of all of this. We're sort of sick and tired of the idea that we're at war again and we've got to fight and we're going to do all of that sort of stuff, and and maybe politicians should keep their beaks out of everything else. I think that there was sort of an element of that, and even up until the point where there was a kind of a thing. I remember being at a model show where somebody came up and said, "Why are you building models of these things? These things kill people." and there was still that, and that was kind of the early 80s. So that wasn't sort of it wasn't like it was very close to the Second World War. It was much sort of later on, and I think that stoicism that you mentioned is definitely something that is kind of part and parcel of that. But there's that idea that we didn't really want to get involved. We didn't really want to talk about it. You know, the guys who came back from the war, they didn't really talk about it. You know, families had people who fought during the Second World War who got nothing out of the people. It was like, no, that was something I did. I don't really want to discuss that anymore. My school, he'd left before I got there, but my secondary school, we had a Lancaster pilot as a teacher. And nobody knew that he'd flown Lancasters, and yet he was a pilot that had done an entire tour of duty during the Second World War, and he just didn't want to talk about it, so he didn't. He kept it to himself, and that was kind of it, you know.
I think you find a lot of folks are from that era were very I don't know what's the word I'm looking for,
reserved.
Very humble about what they had done and what they had accomplished. You know, there was a lot of humility within those gentlemen.
Absolutely. I had an uncle who was a gunner in a TBF Avenger in the Marine Corps, and he was on Guadalcanal in 42 and 43, and he refused to talk about it. And and he was, in my view, you know, not as in the thick of fighting as a ground Marine, but he still couldn't talk about it, which I found astonishing at the time. But I got it, and unfortunately, passed away when I was relatively young. But because I would have, in later years, I would have loved to slowly try to get him to talk about it, and at least the positive aspects of what he remembered. But
I had a great uncle who was a B-17 commander, and he very rarely talked. I remember building the monogram B-17 for him as a child. You know, and that was back when I would cut the round circles, the clear circle disc to hang it from the ceiling, you know, and for the prop spinning and all that stuff. So real quick, let me interrupt. We've got a lot of folks that have come in. I want to kind of do a real quick introduction here for the listeners. First of all, we've got Nemo, our other co-host, has joined us. Welcome, Nemo. I know you've been busy this weekend. It's good to see you. We have the two OG model geeks down here, Justin Lentz and Gabe Pincelli, has joined. They way predate me with this Model Geeks deal. For you guys coming in, we have John up here from Mr. G's Workbench YouTube channel. He's joined us for today's stream. Of course, we've got Jeff Hearn over here from Madison, IPMS Nationals Chair, coming in and helping out. And then, of course, our guest this afternoon here for the stream, Spence Pollard. So that's kind of the round the horn here for everybody. I just a lot of folks coming in. I'm going to try and keep the speaker up as I can as we're going through, because there's a lot of small squares going on now. But welcome, guys. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, good to be here. Jeff, that was just because like there's a bunch of Navy guys here, and Army beat Navy yesterday. So
and you know what? I have to admit, I was catching a lot of grief before the game, and then after the game was over, I was a gentleman. I didn't say anything to anybody.
I appreciate that.
You know, you guys could wallow. Yeah, don't worry about it. Army has had their day in the dark after getting their heads
Spencer, we're talking about real football.
No, I'm sorry. Do you mean rugby with helmets?
Yeah,
exactly. Rugby with pads and helmets. That's right.
Yeah.
Isn't your sport the one that's organized around the television commercials to make everybody?
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
That sport, not the one that goes.
But at least we know when the game is over, unlike you guys who just keep running around the field until somebody decides they've had enough.
Oh yeah, that's actually a thing. Yeah, if it stays in play after the 80th minute, It stays in play until somebody kicks it out.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. I don't really follow rugby, actually. It's not. I sort of follow it from a national point of view, England. But I don't really watch rugby. I'm obviously a football fan, so it's not really a game. But I did start getting it. A friend of mine was a huge American football fan, and a young guy that I sort of got to know a few years back, and he was talking to me about it. And I did start to watch it and started to quite enjoy it. Actually, I thought it was okay. Once he sort of explained the sort of minutiae of it and how it kind of works. I also started to watch bits of baseball as well, but that's kind of like such an opaque game. I have no idea what's going on in that. It just seems like
neither do they most of the time.
Literally the most complicated sport on the planet. I have no idea what's going on. So I think. But the other one, the other sort of, I guess, North American sport that I used to watch a lot, and I used to, because we had a local team that I used to follow home the ways, was hockey. I used to watch ice hockey a lot. So I still sort of do watch quite a bit of ice hockey.
Well, hockey is just soccer on ice with sticks.
Yeah, hockey's kind of good. I like, see, the sort of the connection between the sports that I like is that they don't stop and start. You know, it's not like, that's the thing I sort of can't really wrap my head around with American football. I appreciate that it's about set plays, and I do understand that. So that's, you know, I'm not decrying that at all. I appreciate that that's what it's about. But I think if you're like we are, where you're watching sport that's constantly flowing all of the time, apart from cricket, which goes on for 5 days. Cricket is the only sport in the world where it can go on for 5 days and not get a result. You can have a draw at the end of the 5 days. But yeah, I could get hung, drawn, and quartered for discussing cricket. One of my very best friends is he still plays cricket actually, and he's a huge cricket fan, and I do give him some grief about cricket from time to time, but as he's quite a large lad, I try not to push it too much, because he does get a little bit upset about it when I say it's a silly sport that goes on far too long. So it's good. But I did laugh when the Army versus Navy thing.
I don't know, Robbie. That's a good question. A really good question. Yeah, the Army Navy cheerleaders ever talk about it once they're out of school. It's funny. I thought about that.
I would say yes, absolutely. They carry it on. If you went to the Naval Academy, you went to West Point for your entire life, it's like it's bred into you that you absolutely talk a bunch of shit for the rest of your life when it comes to the Army Navy game.
Yep.
So is this a big sort of yearly event? Is it the yearly game?
Yes,
it is.
Yeah. It is. It is for the military.
And who historically is it fairly even across the board, or is one side?
It was even for decades. And but like anything, I think it was in the 90s and in the 2000s. Maybe it was more in the 2000s. Yeah, more in the 2000s. Navy won a significant more than Army did, and that's over with. And I think it's going to spend a long time where the two academies are going to be quite even again. But because of it, when you look at the win-loss ratio, it looks like it's skewed towards Navy. But we've been playing each other for well over 130. I want to say 120 years now. So there's a lot of games there in the database.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, it's
some of the. I think the best part about the game is the little skits that they do, that the Navy does. I mean, they're absolutely awesome. They are so funny. So during the different like halftime or quarters or whatever, they'll put the skits up on the big board, and even on television, they'll have like the skits that the midshipmen. I always personally, I think some of them are so, but they do them even when like Navy plays Air Force. They do, those are really good. When their Navy's making fun of the chair force, they're just
the chair force.
And,
yeah,
and
no
they'll
kidding.
have like, like in the aircraft, they'll paint like "Go Navy, Beat Army," on the top of the Hornets or on the bottom of the Hornets, and they'll have, it's really interesting. It's all good fun because it's not like all of us military. I mean, I worked with tons of Army people and tons of Marines, and and we're all a bunch of brothers and sisters, so it's just all in fun.
Yeah,
we're all
allowed to make fun of each other.
I was actually walking across a parking lot here. It's been 2 years back now. We were going to one of our model meetings, and I looked up, and we're really close to Andrews Air Force Base. It's just across the way, the Patuxent River here up towards DC, and there's an F-16, an F-15. There's a KC whatever tanker flying over, and T-38 or something. They're just flying real low over Pax River here. So I walked in, I was telling Tim, I said, what the hell's going on up there? He says, oh, they're waving their flag, right? Because that was the Navy, Air Force Navy game that weekend.
Yep.
So they're flying literally over Pax River, over Annapolis and everything in formation, and going back to Andrews and waving their Air Force flag. So it's the little things like that. The rivalry is pretty cool.
Really blackguarding each other then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
I heard a new acronym for Air Force the other day, and it kind of made me giggle. If you break the letters of Air Force down, it stands for "It ain't right flying over real combat every day." Yeah, one of my very best friends is a retired Air Force Master Sergeant, and we give each other complete and total hell every single day.
Yeah. So Spence, going back, from the Navy side, so Tim is a Naval Academy grad, retired Navy captain. We have Gabe down here, who is an F-18 pilot, was an F-18 pilot in the Navy. Nemo was an H-53 pilot in the Navy. So, and of course, two flight engineers up top here, Frildo and Whitey.
And one engineer.
So.
I think the last time I spoke to you, we were talking about Poseidons, weren't we? I think that was the thing we.
Yeah. I was working on the Poseidon program at that. And I've moved over to the H-60 Romeo program now, but I was working on the Poseidon program at that.
Yeah. Talking about F-18s, one of the things that is likely to be crossing my bench at some point next year will be. I'm planning a teen series to go with the Century series that I did. So I'm planning 14, 15, 16, and 18. And I've already done the F-16, all for Monograms kits. So the idea would be to use Monograms kits to build these teen jets. And I've done the F-16 that I've done a conversion of to create CCV, which was an aircraft that I really wanted to have a go at. So I'm looking at the F-18, and the plan will be to do. I finally got hold of a prototype, a Monogram prototype F-18, the one with the open lurk slots on it and everything. So, and I'm planning to do. I think it's FSD-3 is the one that I'm planning to do, which was the one I think did the carrier qualifications, and it ended up as a bit of a hybrid. There was all sorts of things banged onto that aircraft. I found a photograph the other day of FSD-3 with the number one's tailplanes on it, with the gold and blue trim tailplanes. So it's got the blue panel in it, and it's got tailplanes off number one, which was quite a weird kind of thing. But also because it's sort of weathered and everything. But I will also, I think I'll also plan to do a squadron jet as well for the F-18. But at the moment, I'm getting kind of a bit absorbed with the Growler. I'm sort of keep looking at the Growler and thinking that thing is just. Is it the coolest aircraft on the planet? I think it may well be, Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I don't think any jammers would ever argue that it's not a coolest jet, but I'm sure that there's a whole lot of non-jammer guys be shocked to hear that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think the F-18 is a fabulous looking thing anyway. It always has been a fantastic looking aircraft. I mean, we mentioned earlier on about the YF-17. The YF-17 is I would love to build one of those as well, and I keep sort of looking at it. So my plan will be to do Hasegawa's 32nd scale F-18 as number 1 in the gold and blue trim. That's already set. Do Monogram's kit as FSD3, which gives me a chance to sort of weather it and do some bits and bobs with it. But I really do fancy doing a growler at some point, because I keep seeing there's a guy on Instagram, and he keeps posting videos, and I think it's from one of the Air Guard bases. I can't think which one it is now. It'll come to me in a minute. I keep sort of seeing them, and I like how heavy it looks. There's something about it. It looks really heavy on the ground, doesn't it? I think it's because of the pods and the additional sort of those wingtip pods, and it just has a sort of an aggressive stance that the other superbugs don't really have. But yeah, I will sort of get back to that really, because the F-18 has always been, to sort of have a pilot there, that's kind of cool. It's always been one of my sort of favorite aircraft, and I really do love it, you know. And when you see it, we get to see them at air displays over here. We get Finnish ones always come over here, and we also get Swiss Air Force ones as well. And I really love the Swiss Air Force jets. They look stripped back. They've got those stripped back markings. They're really sort of pretty, really kind of nice jets. And their pilots fly them like they basically just, it's, you know, seat your pants as if they're on fire, really. You know, they're just, you know, they really throw them around.
Drive it like you stole it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like a, and I always thought, we went to the Etatu earlier on this year, and I thought we watched the F-18 display pilots do their thing, and it was great, you know. And I thought that's display of the weekend, the whole thing, until the French Air Force pilot did his Rafale display, which was the most extraordinary thing. The way he moved that aircraft, it was literally from wheels up. It was at the end of its envelope the whole way around, and he just didn't break at all. It was like, I am just literally going to see how far I can push this thing. It was extraordinary to watch. And I think he did get display of the weekend, actually. I think he was there was another guy as well. There was an F-16 display that was fantastic as well. But they're always brilliant. I just love watching them go. But I do think there's something about the Growler. I think I'm going to have to satisfy that lust at some point and build one, because it keeps kind of coming up. And they've got fabulous color schemes as well, haven't they? I mean, geez. Yeah.
Spence, you had mentioned that test Hornet, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, that's another one I think we have. It's number 1 or number 2, I think, sitting right here at Pax River as well. That had the open slots between the Lexus, the wood inserts, and all that stuff, and sitting right up here at the front gate as well.
Yeah, the one I sort of wanted to build with, really, and it was down to Mike Reeves was the one that sent me the kit, and actually the kit that he sent to me, and I've completely forgotten the guy's name, the chief designer for Monogram at the time, the guy Bill Bosworth, is it? Not Bill Bosworth.
I remember Mike showing me that kit before he said, yeah, I can't remember the guy's name.
And it's got "please return to" it written inside the fuselage half, because it was the test shot that Monogram created for that F-18. And so the box I've got that he sent to me is like in different colored plastics. So there's some white in there, there's some gray in there, there's two-tone gray and all that sort of stuff. But it's got test shot, please return to the designer. And I said to Mike, I can't build this. This is like some sort of holy grail kind of thing. You know, this is where it all began. And he said, no, it's got to be built. That's why I sent it to you. So that'll be it. But I won't remove that from the inside of the model. That will stand, and I'll photograph it with that inside and everything there.
Didn't that box thing have the speed brake still between the verticals, I think?
Yeah,
when they came out.
Yeah, because all the Legacy Hornets still had that. We had that.
Yeah. I think
I thought this was a Super Hornet. This is the Legacy Hornet. Then that you're talking about.
I think most Hornet fans tend to prefer the Legacy jets to what they consider the sort of the fatter, overweight version. But I really like the Super Hornet. I think it's I do think it looks great. It's one of the Strike Eagle. I feel the same way about. I think the Strike Eagle looks fabulous with those conformal packs on the side and everything. And on Fridays they at Lake and Heath they often will test those at post engineering checks. They'll test those, and there's a fantastic video of a Strike Eagle where they've taken everything off it, all of the conformal tanks, the fast packs or whatever they call them now. They've taken all of the pylons off them, the whole shooting match. So basically it's like Strike Eagle, like Streak Eagle, that kind of thing. So it's as stripped back as it possible. Then they do unrestricted takeoffs with them to see how they go. That thing is ridiculously overpowered without all of that kit on it. It just they talk about homesick angel. This thing just unbelievable. But I don't like. So I like the Strike Eagle and I like the Superbug, but I don't like the new F-16s at all. I don't like the later blocks with all of the conformal tanks scabbed onto them. I think they look awful, and it makes with the raised spine and all of that kind of thing. It just takes away for me from the way that airplane was supposed to look in the first place. It's a bit like taking a really pretty kind of car, and putting flared wheel arches on it and big scoops on the front and all of that kind of big fat wide wheels. And that's not how the designer designed it. It was designed to look like a lightweight fighter. And so the early block 10, block 15 F-16s, they're perfect, absolutely perfect design. I really prefer.
They look clunky now. They look just.
Well, they do, yeah. It's sort of everything. It's kind of everything that's sort of modern has stuff scabbed onto it. I mean, the M1 Abrams, the original M1, the 105 M1 was a really good looking vehicle, and now you look at Tusk 1A2 or something with all of that armor scabbed on. You can't really see the vehicle. All you're seeing is just blocks of armor onto it. So
you can say the same for the Challenger.
Yeah, exactly the same. The original Challenger, the Challenger 1 was really good looking vehicle, and then they sort of scabbed on all of the slatted bar armor all over it and everything, and you can't see the vehicle. It's just like where's it gone? Are you trying to camouflage it around a load of kind of clutter? It's but they make great modeling subjects, don't they? So that's why people like them, because there's lots of detail and lots of little kind of bits on them and everything. I don't sort of see it that way. I tend to prefer the way that God intended, really, rather than.
Well, I tell you, we in almost every podcast and almost every episode, we're like, Mr. T, are you listening? Legacy Hornet, are you listening? Legacy Hornet. Oh, man. It's a license to print money.
I'm really surprised actually that isn't something that they're thinking about, because it would be phenomenal.
From your mouth to God's ear, there, Spence. From your mouth to God's ear.
It would like you say, it would be absolutely something that would. You just think of the variants just with Legacy.
Oh my Lord!
Just with Legacy, just do Although to me it would be they would do an F-16, wouldn't they? And they do a single seater, and they put all of the parts in for the two seater, and then never release the two seater. So
that's
why on earth they've never done
the F-16.
Yeah, why they've never done a 2-seat F-16 is sort of a bit beyond me, really. I'm not sure, not kind of sure why that is.
I mean, so I had asked George that. I'm like, dude, come on, why haven't you guys done it? You'd sell bazillions of them. And he said, Mr. T doesn't like the 2-seat F-16, period. Next question. It's that simple. He just doesn't like it. Doesn't like the look of the 2. And me, it's my favorite. Because Spencer, I'm with you. Like, I love like an older F-16 without all the humps and bumps. Not that I don't like that one. I just really love the A's or the C's that, and especially one like an adversary or an aggressor jet where it's just the airframe with the wings, no pylons. And I just think the shape of the nose, and especially that giant freaking engine, I think I really, and I love just how the gear looks, and it's, I agree. That's why I built like 6 of them. And that's probably, I think that's the most prevalent kit that I have built in my case is our F-16s. I just love them. And I don't have any of the, jets built with the conformal tanks and all that stuff. I just like the plain old stripped back, F-16. I just think it's sexy as hell.
Yeah.
But if they made a really nice, because I built that Hostile Hornet and it's just so much effort. And so I just don't want to do that again. So, like Darren said, man, hopefully one day we can hope that Big T would either do a 2-seat F-16 or even a single seat Legacy.
It was one of the reasons why.
I've yet to build a model of a Hornet I flew because the kits are just, I don't look forward to building the kits.
Yeah.
They're available. But
see, I'm the exact opposite of you guys. I think this, like the SUFA and the F-16s that the Poles are flying with the conformal tanks and all of the racks, and I think that's just sexy as hell.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? And I know a lot of people who will only build the later block sort of 50, 60 aircraft. Whereas when Kinetics kit first came out, I was determined to do a Belgian Air Force one. That's what I wanted to do. As soon as it came out, I looked at the photographs and thought, I'm going to do an early block Belgian Air Force jet. And I was determined to do that. It didn't even figure. But part of that for me is that and I've discussed this widely with a lot of people, so I think it's not a surprise. My interest in aviation was forged at the end of the 70s when I was a child. And I think if I was only ever to build aircraft of a certain period, it would be from about 76 to about 85, that block. So that sort of 9-year block, I would happily never build aircraft outside of those two, of that area, that sort of window of time. All my favorite color schemes were in there. All of my favorite machines were in there. US Air Force was still using aircraft that were in Southeast Asia schemes. You got, I could spend my entire life just building Air National Guard jets, without sort of thinking about it. The F-106 that I built is in Massachusetts Air National Guard. It's one of the most beautiful color schemes out there, but it was originally going to be a Montana Air National Guard aircraft until I painted the cockpit gray, which wasn't part and parcel of their aircraft because they were bright blue cockpits, the only unit that had those cockpits. But think about Michigan Air National Guard Phantoms, those kind of things, and then RAF jets that were all in wraparound grey and green camouflage, A-10s that were in the original European One schemes. So I think my sort of interest is forged within that time. So, and that's when those aircraft designs were coming on stream. When you think about F-16s or Tornadoes or, all of those sort of aircraft, that F-15s had come in a bit earlier, but they were sort of starting to be seen around that time. F-14 Tomcats, those kind of things, F-18 Hornets. So I've sort of become regressive in my interests, that I've become that curmudgeonly old git that sits at the end of the bar in the pub and says, music finished in 1975 and all new bands are rubbish. I'm a bit like that now with my subject choices, modern aircraft are just boring grey jets, and all the interesting stuff flew in the 1970s, much against my sort of desire. But I think I've become that person. I've just become an old git who just doesn't want to admit that there are interesting subjects out there for us to play with in 2023. I mean, I'm building an F-35B at the moment. It's a grey jet. I'm sitting there building it, thinking, what can I do to make this interesting? How can I bring this up? How can I bring this finish up and not make it look completely fake? And I'm going to have to do something with it, because I did build a 72nd one and it looked quite bland, and so I don't really want this one to look quite as bland. But I think we've just become, I don't know. I've just become that person. There you go. That's me sitting on the leather psychiatrist couch, giving you an idea of why I approach the hobby the way that I do, and build 50-year-old monogram kits as some sort of. I've become a flagellant. I think that's what it is. I'm sort of self-flagellate when it comes to building models, that I have to make myself as miserable as possible to feel any sense of achievement at the end of the process. Don't build a Tamiya, F-14 Tomcat when I can go out and build a monogram one. That's the sort of the kind of person I've sort of become.
I want to kind of go back to that Century Series deal real quick, if you don't mind. Derek Post, one of our good friends, Derek, he posted in here earlier about your volume 2, and I bring this up because this is a conversation we have quite often about the older kits and the raised panel lines, and he asked here about restoring the monogram raised lines. So I thought that'd be a fascinating little back and forth on how you deal with them as opposed to, I know Scott and Whitey, they've got a way that they manage these raised panel lines, which is just works like a charm. So I wanted to throw that question out there and see how this conversation goes. So.
Yeah, the raised panel lines was something that I wanted to keep on those models. I figured that when I started it as a legacy kind of collection, that I wanted to build the models as if I was stepping back in time to when they were released. So what I was doing is I was putting them together with my skills today, but back in 1984 or whenever that F-106 was released. I think it was about 84. And I wanted to then build it the way I would have done back there. So the raised panel lines I wanted to keep across the subject. Didn't really want to rescribe them because I figured that if I was going to rescribe them, I may as well go out and buy, build a newer kit. Although, build Trumpeter's kit, although it is an absolute, horse's backside of a model. So I would do that. And the raised panel lines obviously are a big issue. They're certainly a big issue in a number of those kits where you've got upper and lower fuselage halves that need to be joined, and then you have to then reinstate the panel lines over those sanded.
Yeah, the voodoo is another one. They're really pronounced.
I'd like to say that I did something that was really that was really clever, and that I'm the greatest model maker on the planet for coming up with this. But that's not true. The way I did it was I simply used the tip of a number 10 scalpel blade, and I marked out where the lines were going to go, and I used the tip of the scalpel blade into the plastic and ran from one line to the next across the broken line. Now, if you were to look at that under extreme magnification, what you would do is that you would see a cut line, and on either side of that cut line, you would have very, very delicate burrs that had run up. So you would essentially create what looks like a tram line. But under normal viewing and against the plastic, what it does is it simply raises a line where the scalpel blade has gone into the plastic, and it connects the missing sections. And once you paint it, it looks like you've got raised panel lines where there are none. And I used that across the F-106. I used it across the F-102. I used it underneath the natural metal finish, not the natural metal finish because it isn't natural metal. I used it under the sprayed aluminium finish on the F-100 as well, and it worked like a charm. I tried it on another model, and I was sort of aware of the visual look of running a scalpel blade into a sheet of plastic. And if you do that, you run your finger across it, you can feel that there's a raised burr, and that raised burr is the way that I joined the dots. One of the other things that I was I was extremely careful with my filling and my sanding and my alignment on that, because I wanted to make sure that it as much as possible I was keeping panel lines in place. So I wasn't sanding whole chunks off like the whole of the side of the 106 nose. I was only working around, and what I did was that around the joints I would mask it off with tape on either side of those joints, so that when I was sanding them and I was filling them, I was trying to keep the damage to surrounding areas as little as possible, and in the main that worked, so that when the models were finished, they kind of looked like there wasn't too much in the way of filling or sanding. But overall, that's the way I did it. I didn't go for, like, you know, using very thinly stretched sprue to go from one side to another or anything. I felt that kind of overcomplicated it for me. I needed a quick system to do that, and so I found that the tip of the scalpel blade was the way I did it. I was very careful that I ran it along tape edges, and so everything was as accurate as possible. I also used a very similar technique. I don't know if you've seen I did a prototype Harrier. It's actually a model of the development batch Harrier.
That's the silver one you have on your profile,
yeah,
correct?
the
You have
one
on your page.
Yeah, the one that's on my page, the silver one, that was done in the same way. And what I did with that was that I masked off all of the panels and all of the different areas of metallic paint, natural metal, the anodized finish that's on it and everything. And then once everything was sprayed and the whole model was sprayed, because the whole model was completely smooth, I mean glass smooth, once I'd done that, I then cut along the edge of all of those masked off areas with a scalpel blade, and I cut into the paint. And then once I'd cut into the paint, I then riveted the model over the top of the paint as well. And that way I got perfect kind of definition. Yeah, you can see it there. So you can see where all the panels are on that, and all of the lines on it. That's actually cut into the paint with the tip of a scalpel blade. And I think that what's the guy's name? Is it Paul Budzig, the guy who does all these scratch builds aircraft? I think it's Paul Budzig. I think he's a dentist. He came up with that idea. I think I'd read he'd done something about it in fine scale modeler years ago, and he'd cut it in. I think he'd done it. Was it a Tempest that he built? Did he scratch build a Tempest? But you can kind of see, but all of the panel lines on that are actually cut into the paint rather than cut into the plastic. And that's Revell's 1973 released their 32nd scale Harrier, because their Harrier is essentially, it's a hybrid. It's a development batch Harrier, but I wanted to sort of convert it. So but you can kind of see, but yeah, that's the way I did it. I kept it really simple, but visually, if you were to see the models, if you were to ever, well, obviously you'll have seen all of these models in, you know, on the photographs I've done of them, but if you were to see them in the flesh, they do look like they've got raised panel lines kind of all over them. So that was it. It was as simple as that. I didn't go for anything complicated.
That's exactly the technique that Whitey and Nemo have been trying to get me to attempt, and I'm just scared to death of it. So
I think it's not difficult. It is. I think that's the thing. I think it's just that hurdle that you go over once you do it. And the thing about this is, my hands are pretty kind of, they don't move much, and I have found that I can sort of almost freehand panel lines now with a scalpel and be able to go around that, and it's that, and I can't do it in curves, and that's a bit more difficult. I did buy one of those sort of cutters that sort of cut in, that they've got a tip that twists at the top. So that would sort of help if I was going to go around sort of curves. But I think that's the simplest way to do it. And if the other guys are doing it that way, then I'm happy about that, because I'm onto the right thing. I've seen other people do it differently, and like I say, use stretch sprue and all of that kind of thing. I think Who's that?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't catch that either.
I say, but the only thing I do different is using a number 11 blade vice a 10. Otherwise, yeah.
So it's exactly, we're doing it exactly the same way. That's good. Yeah, it's maybe we all like a kind of a simple simple life. I don't know. When you've got to when you've had all of the other trauma of building these kits, really, you want something as simple as possible when you get to the other side. And it works particularly well with metal finishes as well, and sort of sprayed aluminium finishes. It works really nicely like that. But I am genuinely heartened by the response to the Century series, because it was something that I felt quite passionate about while I was building, and I felt quite emotional about it as well. It was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. So to have so many people be part and parcel of that project and enjoy it was something that I really fantastic. So
yeah, it was a great series. I know I got my copies, a couple copies of.
Thank you for that. Well, listen, guys, I am going to have to move on, if that's okay, because I've got another broadcast at 7:30.
Okay.
So I'm meeting up with John and Drew for our sort of Sunday night. I don't even know what they're talking about, to be honest. I don't think they do, and everything. But I really appreciate you asking me to come on again. It was a pleasure the last time I came on. You guys were fantastically welcoming. So thank you so much for that. And
it was a pleasure having you as always, Spencer. We really enjoy every time you come on. We learn something new. The conversation just goes interesting.
Well, that's 100%. I appreciate it. And it's nice to have put sort of names to faces. Sorry, the Mr. G didn't really say. I apologize for me sort of domineering the conversation. But
not at all.
And it's Jeff. It was nice to chat to you. Good luck with the Nationals next year. I hope that goes without a hitch, and I say that in all sincerity. After
I hope maybe we can see you. We'll see if the stars align, and we'll have you in Madison.
Yeah, maybe so. And if I need any information about F-18, the subtleties of the F-18, I know where to come now. I'll get that. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time, and I hope the rest of your day goes really well. Good luck with your projects.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as always, if you need any help from anything on this side of the pond, please don't hesitate to just,
especially if you need monogram kits, because we got them all over the place.
Please stop. I'm genuinely begging you all, stop. It feels now like it's starting to get a little bit out of control. It really does, and I've sort of lost count of the amount of people that said, so when are you building a B-29? When's that going to happen then? What? And come on. So yeah, it's a shocker, really. But I can't. I seem completely unable to say no. What would I rather build? A 50-year-old monogram kit or a Tamiya F-35? There we go.
Know which one's quickest, anyway. But,
well, God, yeah, absolutely.
Well, that weapon
Spencer.
Kit.
You see, that's the holy grail. That's the holy grail kit for me. I have to say, at some point, that's it. That's the bucket list that you have. The B-52 is a bucket list kit for me. Yeah, definitely. I've never built a B-52, and oddly as well. Just very quickly before I go, we talked about. I'm not sure if I was talking to you about it when I was last on about favourites. I have a number of favourites, as you know. Look at that. The P3 Orion is an absolute favourite of mine. Never built one. The C-130 Hercules, absolute favourite. Never built one. The Stepacat Jaguar, absolute favourite. Never built one. Crusader, never built one. And I'm like, why have I got so many favourite aircraft that I've never put together? So I need to sort that out.
That one's never been out of the shrink wrap. The inside packaging, and when I look through the cellophane, the panel lines are just super crisp, and there's no flash. And part of me wants to just dive into it and build it, and the other part says you really shouldn't. It belongs in a museum.
But the thing is, though, my feeling is that model kits, they're literally worthless unless you want to build them.
Correct.
These now. Here's a conversation that we could maybe have another day that will go down on forever. I don't understand the idea of collecting kits for the sake of the collection. A kit only exists as an artifact that you put together to enjoy and then display. It would be
Nemo,
like
why are you laughing?
It would be like buying a classic car and never driving it. Or me, I play drums, buying a drum kit and never playing it. Why would you do that? It makes no sense to me.
It's the dream. It's like, you think about, oh man, I want to do this. I really want to build this. And one of these days I'm going to have the time to do it. And it just never. And that's why recently I took a real hard look at all my kits and I'm like, okay, I build like 2 a year. So my 500 that I have are probably not going to get built, so just keep the ones that I really, really want and then kind of start offloading all the ones that I know that I'm never going to build. And I did, I sold probably or gotten rid of at least probably 150 in the last few months. And I do have my few that, no kidding, like I will build this. One of these days I will build this, but not today.
It really is a case, though. John and I use a phrase, and it's if not now, when.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of really important. But I do think that about kits. Obviously, everybody buys a kit with the intention of building it. But I do know some people that buy kits because they want to have that as part of a collection and have no intention of ever building it. And I don't really understand that concept. It's, to me, it's a model kit is ammunition that I use to create enjoyment for myself and then look at when it's finished. It's sort of like that. That B-52, I would absolutely not be able to resist the temptation of ripping into that cellophane. It would be like, honestly, it would be like me diving into a giant burger as if it was my last meal. I honestly wouldn't be able to do it.
And Spencer, I think and I might be unique in this aspect, but and the geeks know that I'm really weird when it comes to the boxes. I've always been, I have a really hard time throwing away the model boxes after the kit's built. And the reason why, there's this very simple reason, is I love the box art. So, I have 100 or a couple hundred probably aviation art prints that I collect, and I have no intention of framing them. And I look at them all the time. I'll go through. I mean, I have some of these prints that are very valuable, and I'm never going to frame them. I want them to stay flat. And I have several like Eric Hartman prints, and they're beautiful. And people are like, dude, why don't you put those on your wall? And I'm just like, why would I do that? I don't want anything to happen to it. And it's not sane. But I feel like with the boxes, like when I'm a sucker for box art, I am. Oh, if you want me to buy a kit, put a really cool, some box art on there, and I will probably I'll probably buy. Like that's why I have several. There's several kits that I have. I just really love the box art. So when I see it at a show, if it's a good price, I'll probably buy it. I'm not saying it's right or that I don't need help, but it's just it's how it is.
Maybe a little help.
Yeah, I understand that somewhere, and I don't know where it is. And I really should find it. I have got an original print of the Airfix Beaufighter box art that's unencumbered by any of the. It's the original painting of the Beaufighter. The one where it's going over the top of the. It's coming towards you. It's going over the top of the ship that's in the background. And it was given to me by, of all people, I believe, if my memory serves me, by Roy Cross.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I don't know where it is.
Oh.
Don't know where it is. And it's a small, maybe A4, I think, but it's got none of the Airfix logos on, and it's not cropped to fit the box. It's the original. And I don't know where it is. Yeah, I got to meet Roy Cross. I was introduced to him at a show, and he was just such a lovely guy,
Yeah.
a lovely guy, you know. And
That's awesome.
yeah, so I do understand that. I do understand that. But build the damn kits, build them. They're there to be built. They're not there to be hoarded. Build them, put them together. Otherwise, you end up, you know, you know, there's that joke, isn't there? At some point, our loved ones are going to find out. They're going to try and sell our kits for the prices that we told them we paid for them.
To me, what is the deal with all these big boxed F-16 Thunderbird kits? What the hell? Why do you need 6 of them? You know.
Yeah. Oh, so you're the man who's got all of the extra F-16 kits. There you
that's
go.
the guy.
Oh wow!
That's
now I
guy.
know where to come if I need a Thunderbirds.
Hey, if you ever need one, I know a guy. I'll hook you up.
Right, fellas. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Right,
it. Thanks for the time. Really brilliant. I've enjoyed the last couple of hours, I suppose. It's been fantastic.
Yes,
so yeah, really good. I wish you all the very best. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you again soon.
Take care.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Take care now.
We'll,
take care.
We'll
see you soon. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Nemo.
All right. So that's always a great time having Spencer on. So always good. Always good. So let's go around the room here real quick. I know we were going to keep the stream here today to about 2 hours, and we've exceeded that so far because for the plan for the viewers out there, we plan on coming back this evening around 6 o'clock and rolling this out and finishing up the 72 build on between 6 Eastern and 9. So real quick, we're gonna go around. I'm gonna start up here with Whitey. How's your painting going there, buddy? Yeah, you're on mute. You're on mute.
All right. So
they call you Gabe now.
My daughter popped in, so I had to mute it, so she wasn't.
Yeah.
Anywho, yeah, I get the basic colors down, and I'm kind of sitting here debating on whether or not I want to even get into masking off the ID/invasion stripes or not. I don't know, man. Can I get it done by tonight? If I do that, probably not. So I don't know.
Hey, Whitey, you know, I was thinking about, I really want to jump on an Overlord build and do something with stripes. I was wondering, what if you took just regular Tamiya tape and instead of cutting it with, a blade, just trying to tear it and then mask. So you're masked with kind of that rougher edge, and then you're still masking. That's what I'm going to try that. I'm going to try and see if, if I tear it, where's the camera?
Yeah.
If I having a nice strip, I think that might look kind of cool. Make it a little easier. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
With this plan, I wouldn't do that because they would need on these things because
okay.
Korean War they were put on for ID bins. But
okay, I'm sorry.
If you want to talk my C-47 project, yeah, that is my plan. Is to use a straight edge and kind of tear it, because that's what Dan Knopfel did the same thing with his 72 scale C-47 that he had at PAXCon, and I liked how that looked in 72 scale. So I was like, man, that could look just as good in 48 scale too. And that is my plan for that, because I want them to look neat, but I don't want them to look, you hear people all the time, oh, well, they were hand painted and they were put on with mops and all this kind of shit. Well, hey, that's cool. But in 148 scale, if I slathered on, invasion stripes using this, it's going to look like hammered dog shit, So I want it to look neat, but I don't want it to look crisp either. So I'm with you there as far as that. I want some sort of hastily applied element to them, but nothing that looks like crap either. But yeah,
Robbie's
with this particular. Go ahead.
Robbie's gone back and talked about he used oil paints on his Razorback.
Yeah, there's an idea too. Now, sprayed them or did you brush paint them? Because
I'm sure that was probably done after the fact over the blacks and the whites with some oils to just kind of rough up the edges and blend it into the paints.
So right now, what I'm dealing with is trying to find the arresting hook for this thing because it disappeared off my bench somewhere here, man. And so if you see a lot of this, that's what I'm doing. Is I'm here. I'm looking for the freaking. I don't know where the hell it went, man. I hope I didn't accidentally throw it away. But anyway, I'll find it. If not, I'll make.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So here, Robbie said he sprayed then use the oils.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
So
All right.
that's kind of what I figured.
Yeah. It's yeah. I'm gonna have to really just experiment around before I commit. I am gonna do the Colin method of, I thought about, in regards to the C47 again, not so much this thing, but I'm gonna paint it as come out of the factory and then apply the invasion stripes, just like in real life, right? Because part of me was thinking, man, maybe I'll mask that area, shoot the white, and then mask that area off, and then shoot the olive drab. But I don't want to go that route because, again, I think I can probably get a little more of that effect, that hastily applied effect, if I put the white and the black over the olive drab. Probably have a little bit of bleed through on the white portions and things like that. So we'll see how that goes.
Very cool.
I got to find this damn hook.
All right, it's there somewhere.
Yes.
You'll find it. Let's see. Is El Presidente? Are you around? I see we're looking at his bench. I'm not sure if he's still working. He was working on getting his glare shield cleaned up earlier, so he may be taking a break. Let me roll over to Nemo. Nemo, it's great to have you on, man. I know you've been busy all weekend.
Yeah, it was. My wife had planned a while back. Allison had planned to go to DC all day yesterday, so we didn't get home till it was like midnight when we finally got home. And then on Friday I had my company Christmas party. So I just always feel bad to like not go to those things. I mean, I don't know anybody that like looks forward like, woohoo, company Christmas party. But you kind of have to go and like thank the boss and for paying me.
Sure.
So
yeah, sure.
It's just one of those things.
You haven't been able to participate in the 72 scale build, but I see you've got your 48 scale. You want to show the folks out there what it is you're currently working on?
So I've got so this is the EA6A that I've been working on slowly. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I mean,
here again, monogram kit, the older
slowly
ones,
getting there. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Spencer. Like, I love these old monogram kits, and it's really coming along pretty good. I mean, I don't think I'm going to do a whole lot more to the bottom, just kind of making it look kind of nice and dirty and nasty. Just kind of slowly getting there. But so far this kit's not too bad. There's a few gotcha areas, like the wings were pretty warped. Whenever I first, kind of looked at the model, I'm like, wow, man. So I really had to work hard to get the wings straight, get the tailplane straight. But
I'm kind of shocked that you're handling that without a glove on. But that's
that's right here.
I'm just messing with you. How much shit you give me because I touch my models.
And then this here's the old the whatchamacallit, the Tamiya 109 that I've got working. That's it's almost done. I'm really close to being done with this thing. Just kind of slowly but surely working. I did some little decal experimentation with it, which worked out. I'm real happy with definitely the decal sandwich. It works. I mean, I don't have any color shift at all on that one, even with those old. I think I used a couple of the decals from the actual Tamiya kit, the 8, and then the nose unit marking I used. Everything else came from. I think it was Aeromaster, maybe. I think it was Aeromaster. But yeah, so it's it came out great. This kit is just a joy to build. There's no issues really. The canopies fit so well. The clear parts fit really well. Everything just fits, so it's been a lot of fun. and I've taken forever to kind of put it together, just kind of busy with work. And then I get home and, I'm one of those, if I'm tired or I'm not, you know, I've had a long day. I don't even come down to the bench because I
hear you, brother.
I gotta be like, the weekends are usually when I build, and that's when I have the most, I can get the most out of it. But if I'm not into it, you know, it's late at night. But even if I can do like maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, that's okay. But I've just found out, especially if I'm airbrushing, man, I got to be, you know, I got to have the steady hand. I can't have the shakes.
Yeah. Understand.
But and then something that I like to use, and this is, I showed Frill this method, but I really am digging making my own bases. And this is cardstock that you get from like Michael's or you know, Hobby Lobby or whatever, and it's just mat board for pictures. And I just, you know, I'll have like a regular wooden base. This is just an old one, and you know, measure it out so that it'll fit on here nicely, and then I can just weather this piece, and now I'll use what is it? I just use this stuff, which is double-sided tape. You know, just put it on the back part and then stick it down. But I can use this, and I'll weather it and paint it because it's thick.
It's already got a concrete texture to it already.
It already does. Yeah. So it's already got a nice color to it. But when you get done with it, and I'm talking like a half hour, it'll look like this. So that's what it'll look like when you're done. And it's so easy to do. This one's just a kind of a thinner. I wanted to put a thicker one on there, but this took me like a half hour, and Frill can vouch for me. It does not take long to do this. So you can get the speckles on and just streak it and weather it, and just put one line, put some grass on an end, boom, you're done. Instead of taking like a long time to do a base, it's really easy to do.
Very cool.
So that's kind of fun. But yeah, I'm trying to, and of course I've got this right here that we're slowly, you know, we're getting there. You know, this is, you know, I'm really happy with this so far. Just the camo and the paint job is really kind of coming out. You know, I'm really digging it. Just,
which kit is that?
This is the Hobby Boss kit.
Okay.
So I'm just, you know, really happy with how this is coming along. Got the exhaust section done. You know, here's, I don't know if you can see the bottom too much here, but
anyway, so that didn't have 6 fuselage sections.
It did not. It had two pieces. That's it. 2 pieces.
That is some crazy engineering.
Yeah. And it's been a pretty, it goes together just easy. It's just super easy kit to put together. I mean, I think the Kitty Hawk kit probably has better detail and panel lines, because I had to rescribe all of these. I had to run a scriber through because they're just very shallow. But, you know, in the end, it works. I mean, it comes together. You know, I was able, even the bottom, I had to scribe everything. There is a really huge, you know, seam that runs along here. But it's fairly easy to hide, and the pieces fit really well. So, you know, yeah, we're slowly making some progress here, and I'm real happy with the engine section too. It looks really cool. So I'd like to have the SU-22, the EA6A, and the 109 done for our next show, which is in Richmond. So that's now that I have a goal, then I should have all 3 of those done. And then I don't know what I'm going to start next. Who knows? We'll see. But anyway, sorry for going on and on. But
no, you're good. You're good. You're good. Cool. Let me we'll go over here to Gabe. Gabe, you were busy as a beaver over there. I got the airbrush out. Now I know you're not still painting on the growler, are you?
No, I've been actually I've been sitting here. I've been flat boating some fiddly bits for the growler here. Yeah, I don't know how well these will show. But the
the pods,
yeah, all my stenciling, and there's a lot of decaling. I think I figured out between the 3 pods, there's like 65, 66 decals.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
I really, Jesus. There's been a lot of questions asking which kit that was. So that is the mean kit, correct?
Yeah. It's the main growler. So I'm not doing 72nd scale here. Let me grab the growler itself. Just finished decaling it.
Yeah.
You can see my my gloss decal gloss sandwich. There's some shiny. So I'm about to flatboat it.
Now, you know, I built the E. You're building the G. What are your I mean, I'll save my thoughts on the kit, the main kit itself. But what are your thoughts so far on it?
I think it's a very good kit. There's some interesting engineering with the way it goes together. Overall, I'd say I actually really enjoyed putting it together, but I wouldn't say it's an easy kit to build. You know, but you know, as most of you guys know, I'm not afraid of a kit that's difficult as long as it's a subject that I'm passionate about. I really want to do so.
Yeah. Well, comparing it to the Hasegawa kit, though, have you built the Hasegawa Super Hornet?
I've started the Hasegawa Super Hornet, and I'd say it builds better than the Hasegawa. The detail is sharper. You know, Hasegawa, in addition to being difficult assembly wise, the Hasegawa Super Hornet series suffers from, you know, just typical Hasegawa with the panel lines being so fine that you know, that a lot of times they don't continue all the way around curved surfaces, or they disappear under a coat of paint. So so the two things that I've got against the Hasegawa that I prefer on the Mang are the depth of the panel line detail, and actually ease of assembly. The Mang actually, although it is a challenging kit to build in some way, it takes a lot of test fitting. It still goes together better than the Hasegawa kit, I would say.
I think it's an enjoyable kit to build.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very enjoyable kit to build. Just you know, there's just enough challenge to keep it interesting, or just you know, it's not that you can't just slap it together and then solve your fit issues with some filler, but for me, one thing I really enjoy with building kits, and I'm not saying it's in a perfect world you wouldn't have to do it, but it's just a little bit funky with the way it goes together, to where it made me look at things and try to decide, you know, look at things I could do to make it go together easier, and I actually enjoyed that. But even without doing all the little tweaks that I did, it still would go together quite well, and again, better than the Hasegawa kit. I just chose to put a little extra effort into making it go together a little bit better. So,
yeah, well, you did some fancy stuff by blending in that antenna on the top, and I mean, you took that thing the extra mile, I believe. Did some
and that antenna
stuff.
I think we're talking about this antenna here. Yeah, and that's you know, and that's something that with both Mang and Hasegawa, that antenna is provided as a piece that you scab onto the top of the fuselage, whereas on the real aircraft, that whole panel there is new with that antenna faired into it. So to do it properly, there's some filling that has to go on there, and the only way around
things
is to completely retool the upper fuselage piece.
One of the things that got me on the E was, I think it's the octagon shaped, is that GPS antenna forward there.
These?
Right in there. They did that like a huge panel line, you know, into the plastic. And of course I filled mine and then went back and painted the shape, because it's just, it was just a little funky to me, but it was little things like that that stood out. I mean, I loved building the kit when I did it. I thought it went together very well, but there's just little things like that in engineering that kind of made me go, what the hell is this? You know, that's not quite right. But
just, you know, some things that could have been thought through a little bit better, but you know, what kit comes out other than Tamiya Tamiya's latest releases, you know, what kit comes out that you don't find something that could have been thought through a little bit better?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of it also has to do with, you know, the folks that are designing these kits in a lot of cases are not as familiar with the subject as we are.
Or
don't have access to, you know, we're kind of spoiled with the information we have access to.
just the information that's stuck in my head.
Yeah, in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's what I'm working on. Hopefully, I'll have this flat-boated today. And,
John Benford had put up here that some of his photography buddies son, and I think that's Southeast Pennsylvania, designed that scheme there you're doing.
Oh, nice, cool.
Yeah.
Yep, and by the way, the reason I chose to build a growler was a good buddy of mine who lives out near Whidbey Island. He was diagnosed with cancer about a year and a half ago, and he's a huge growler nut. He's not in the Navy. He doesn't fly growlers, but he's a really good aviation photographer, and but he loves the growler. So I decided to build a growler just to kind of keep him motivated. And by the way, he's in remission. So
good.
That's awesome. But this was a way for us to stay connected, and something for him to do was to supply me with reference photos that he is able to get since he's so close to Whidbey. So
sure.
Anyway, but then I just like the what's funny with the my oldest son was really into doing Spartan races. So we've got the Spartan helmet on all sorts of things around the house. And so I just thought the Spartan helmet was kind of cool. So that's why.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much, sir. Let me move over here to John. John has come on tonight. Now, for the rest of you guys that have come on, John is building that mini art P47. So if you've got questions about this new P47 coming out, and now's the time to shoot as he's actually putting it together. But go ahead, John. Talk to the folks and let them know what you got and what your thoughts are there, buddy.
If you like lots of little parts, this kit is for you. I just found, I've discovered it looks good when it's built up, but I think the biggest issues were just I discovered the other day, I installed the tail wheel assembly, and it is so flimsy. And that's,
look at that.
It's just this little thin, piece of plastic. So I don't have a lot of hope for that. But, that was why I mentioned talking about the Meng Hornet. That was an enjoyable kit to build as opposed to this. It's not fun to build. I haven't enjoyed a single step of it. So I saw somebody that, exactly. The cowling fit is terrible. It's 4 sections, and they're dependent on, I don't know enough about radial engines. There's like a ring in there. I don't know if it's an ignition ring or what it is, but that ring that surrounds the front of the engine, those 4 sections of cowling are supposed to slot into that.
Yeah,
and mine didn't fit well at all.
That's exactly what an actual P47 would be set up like.
Yeah.
That's not the ignition ring. That would be on the engine itself, but that's the structure that the thing fastens to inside the cowl frame.
Yeah.
See,
now, John, if you remember, I said that Whitey was our radial expert, man.
That's right.
He knows those. He knows them really, really well.
Yeah, I obviously mine is off. I didn't push it all the way in, mostly because I didn't want to break it. It didn't want to go any further. I stopped, and when I put those 4 sections of cowling over it, that was when the gap became a little more obvious. So it's, like if you look here, it's that gap here is bigger than it should be.
Yeah,
and
so it's probably great for if it's you want to display the engine open. It's probably fantastic. Probably look pretty realistic. Or
yeah,
is the inside of the panels detailed or what?
No, they just had the groove cut in them for so that the pieces would fit onto that ring. But outside of that, the engine looked nice. Even in the basic kit, the engine looks good. And I should have probably left it open. I probably would have been better off. That would have covered all my mistakes, But
can you drop the flaps in that kit?
I think you could if you were willing to do a little surgery on it.
Oh, really? So they didn't give you the option for drop flaps?
No, they don't. You know, like on the Tamiya F4B, you either snip one section or the other.
Yeah.
And then you can drop them. Like, nah, they just go one way.
Yeah. And Robbie's too, saying not in the basic kit. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, not a fan.
Yeah. So you've got that video is going to be coming out here before too long, right? That build video.
I'm just about done. I just got to do the gear, and I'll probably be done with it in the next week.
Gotcha.
So look for my blistering review coming up soon.
We'll be watching. Okay, thanks, John. Appreciate it. Jeff, are you still over there doing figures?
Chugging away, yeah. Well, in session 1, I had started a 72nd scale JU-88, and after I got the cockpit assembled and went to put the fuselage halves together, I realized there was no tail and no horizontal stabilizers in the kit. So that promptly got tossed. And then a friend of mine mentioned that in order for me to be ready for the Overlord group build, that I needed to get started because I'm doing a landing craft with an infantry platoon. So I have about so far, I think there's 18 of these guys in this basic configuration. We did the legs and the torsos last night session, and I'm adding the resin cast heads to the figures because the kit heads and helmets are absolutely atrocious, and they all look like they came from the same DNA gene pool. So I decided to kind of go with just random Hornet heads and a few Verlinden heads and just whatever was in my stash. I actually have to do 28 figures, and I have 29 resin heads. So hopefully I don't drop one or lose one, and I should be okay. But yeah, we're chugging away on the figures. Then those will go to paint hopefully this afternoon, and then I'll start working on the landing craft. Not overly exciting, but it's got to be done.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that. I was muted. My daughter has just come home, and the dogs were going absolutely batty upstairs. So.
Well, you muted me earlier there, and I wasn't sure. Maybe I was talking to myself or something. I wasn't.
No,
we lose him.
I think we lost him. Convenient. Oh, you're breaking up. I can't.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, no, my earbuds crapped out on me. They've been going for almost 2 hours and 45 minutes. So they finally said gave up the ghost. But
enough's enough. Yeah.
Yeah. No, my dogs were going nuts upstairs, so I was on mute. Anyway, over to what I'm doing. As you can see, I've been kind of driving the cameras and stuff here. So the last 2 hours and 45 minutes. So where I showed y'all I was working and I had a whole airplane, that's where I'm at. I haven't changed any. So I've not been able to do a damn thing on it. But I'm going to this here over the next couple of hours. Here again, I'll reiterate, it's not finishing. It's having fun with the process. And this has been great, a great weekend. So I do want to go ahead, and I think we're going to go ahead and close out this session. Like I said, we've been 2 hours and 45 minutes. We were looking about doing 2 hours, but we'll be coming back in for the final session at 6 this evening. That'll give us 2.5, 3 hours to finish up and shoot the shit a little bit before we close out at 9 p.m. Eastern. John, welcome to join us back this evening if you like. I'm sure we'll have some folks coming in and out. Gabe, we can get you and Justin back in here, and Jeff. I might have to shuffle some folks. I'll put in a one big chat for everybody that's joined in this weekend, and we can have 10 on camera at one time, but we'll kind of come in and just close out what everybody's been doing and give our good nights and just have a BS session if that's okay with y'all. So
yeah, I'm not sure if I'll make it later, but if I can, I will.
Yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great to have you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say to to all the folks out there watching, thanks for joining us here over the last several hours. It was a lot of fun. And we certainly look forward to seeing y'all here again in the next couple hours. So y'all have a great afternoon, and we'll see you in the evening. From us here, good afternoon. We'll see you soon.
Keep pressing with those projects.
Yep. Cheers, guys.
See ya.
We'll see ya.
Here you go, Nemo. One last time for you.
Nice.
Whataburger.
I just had lunch there yesterday.
Oh.